Chapter 1987. What kind of superpower is that? Many people exclaimed. Someone screamed. Mountain palm. It's the mountain palm. The mountain palm was a terrifying palm technique. When the palm was thrown out, it was as though a real mountain had appeared in the sky. It was so oppressive that the crowd found it hard to breathe. The palm was too terrifying. The mountains in the sky were earth-shattering. In an instant Lin Xian was enveloped. Whoosh! Lin Xian looked solemn. He took a deep breath, and the great dragon sword soul in his body quickly rotated. Then, mysterious sword runes appeared under his feet, and quickly spread out in all directions. The entire martial arts practice field formed a mysterious sword array. Then, streaks of blood-red sword chi formed in the sword array, and quickly slashed towards the sky. It was as though it could destroy everything. The blood-red sword chi was vast and mighty. It was like a river of blood, carrying with it a murderous aura. Clang! 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 The blood-red sword chi rushed out, and collided with the mountains in the sky. The terrifying sound tore through the void, causing more than 200,000 people to feel a piercing pain in their ears. Many people even fainted on the spot. Both of their superpowers were too terrifying. Whether it was the mountain palm, or the demon-slaying sword, they were both extremely terrifying superpowers. The moment they appeared, the weather changed. Buzz! The void trembled. A snow-covered mountain, that was thousands of feet tall, was being dragged by the mountain general. It seemed as though it was cutting through time and space as it quickly pressed down. Boom! Behind Lin Xian, a huge blood-red sword chi formed into a blood-red dragon that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The terrifying dragon claws grabbed the void and met the attack. Crack! 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 The dragon claws cracked the mountain. However, the huge rocks on top of it also shattered the sword chi dragon claws. This intense battle left the 200,000 over martial artists extremely shocked. Even the people from the Wang mansion were wide-eyed. They could not believe that a young man could fight against the mountain-moving general for so long. Kid, you're amazing. Take my last move. If you can take it, it'll let you into the Wang mansion. With that, the mountain-moving general kept waving his palms. Suddenly, 13 huge mountain peaks appeared in the sky, one after another, as if they were demonic peaks that reached the heavens. They filled the void. Immediately, the entire sky darkened. It was as if the 13 mountains in the sky would descend at any moment. A vast aura that could crush the heavens and earth quickly spread out in all directions. That aura was simply too sharp. It could definitely suppress everything in the world. Lin Xian's expression was extremely solemn as well, because the 13,000-meter-tall mountains posed a huge threat to him. Therefore, in the next moment he roared. The demon-slaying sword formation under his feet quickly intertwined and formed 9 gigantic black tortoises that soared into the sky. Divine tortoise-carrying mountains, 9 huge black tortoises, completely condensed from sword chi and full of spiritual power, rushed into the sky like real divine beasts. They let out loud and clear roars. Then the 9 divine turtles lifted the 13 demonic mountains in the sky. Boom! Boom! The sound of violent collisions rang out, and every one of them made people's hearts jump. He actually wanted to completely hold back the 13 huge mountains? Everyone was shocked by this scene, because the best way to resist this move was to dodge quickly, or find a weak point, and attack with all his might. But now Lin Xian wanted to forcefully hold back the 13 huge mountains. This was definitely the most difficult and unrewarding method. The mountain-moving general was also stunned. Then he shook his head. Impossible. You can't possibly hold back my 13 mountains. He did not believe that Lin Xian could hold back his 13 mountains. However, in the next moment he was stunned. Because in the sky, the 9 huge black tortoises were roaring crazily. Their bodies were shining brightly. In the end, they actually managed to hold back the 13 mountains in the sky. Otherwise, they would have dragged the 13 mountains into the sky and disappeared into the void. What? He really did it. What kind of superpower is that? It's too scary. He can actually resist the mountain-moving general's mountain palm. That kid really did it. The mountain-moving general's eyes flickered. Then he retracted his aura. He had said that the 13 mountains would be his last move. If his opponent could withstand it, then he would not attack again. Kid, you're very strong. You've exceeded my expectations. The mountain-moving general looked at Lin Xian and said in a low voice, I will keep my promise and recruit you into Valurium Manor. The 200,000 cultivators were in an uproar when they heard this. Then, they all looked at Lin Xian with burning eyes. Entering the Valurium Palace was something they'd always dreamed of. It was also the reason for their visit. However, some of them had been here for several years and still hadn't entered. Yet, a young man had successfully entered Valurium Manor on the first day. Such heaven-defying speed made everyone envious. But there was nothing they could do. They had seen with their own eyes how powerful the young man was. He was able to fight the mountain-moving general to a standstill, even with his cultivation suppressed. Even if someone like him didn't enter now, he would be able to do so the next time. Therefore, they could only be envious. By Qianqi, the mountain-moving general shouted coldly, This subordinate is here. At this moment, a middle-aged man in white robes stepped forward. He was very respectful. Arrange for this child to be sent to your Golden Sword Peak. Yes. The middle-aged man in white robes quickly responded. Then he looked at Lin Xian. From now on, you are a member of Valurium Manor's Golden Sword Peak. Golden Sword Peak? What's that? Lin Xian was very confused. He didn't know much about Valurium Manor. Valurium Manor isn't just a simple manor. It also governs an endless territory. Under Valurium Manor, there are 5 major branches. Golden Sword Peak is one of them. Those who pass the selection will be randomly assigned to one of the 5 branches. You will follow me to Golden Sword Peak. So that's how it is. Lin Xian nodded to show that he understood. Then he said, Then I'll have to trouble you, senior. Although Lin Xian's performance during the battle with Moving Mountain was extremely domineering and looked down on the world, Lin Xian's strength was still not enough. But now, he didn't seem arrogant at all. The middle-aged man in white robes breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his amiable attitude. If Lin Xian had been an unruly person, it would have been very difficult for them to get along. But now Lin Xian was so amiable. The middle-aged man in white robes was very happy. All right, child. Follow him to Golden Sword Peak. The mountain-moving general said. Then, he looked at the middle-aged man in white robes. Tell your peak lord to take good care of this child. Chapter 1988. Of course not. Our Golden Sword Peak will do our best to nurture such a genius. The middle-aged man in white robes smiled. There were some other young cultivators in the distance. They had also successfully joined the Valurium Palace. They were envious when they heard this. Needless to say, Lin Xian would be greatly nurtured after joining the Golden Sword Peak. That was why they were envious. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was very calm because his target wasn't here. Joining the Valurium Palace was only his first step. His real goal was to enter the Tai dynasty's core. From there, he could obtain information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. All right, you can come with me. The middle-aged man in white robes called out to Lin Xian. They then walked into the distance. Soon Lin Xian and the other young cultivators gathered together. They were all geniuses who were about to go to the Golden Sword Peak. Boom, boom, boom. The middle-aged man in white robes moved his hands, forming mysterious runes in the air. Then the void was torn apart. A shining golden door appeared in the air. Lin Xian knew that this was a portal that could be used for spatial teleportation. However, opening it required a huge amount of resources. Even Lin Xian and the Crimson Divine Dragon couldn't open it. One could imagine how vast the resources of the Valurium Palace were. Seeing that the portal was fully open, the middle-aged man in white robes waved his hand and stepped in. Then the other geniuses followed suit. Lin Xian took a deep breath and entered the golden portal as well. Boom, boom, boom. Time and space shifted. When Lin Xian's vision regained clarity, he discovered that he was still in a mountain range. There were mountains and rivers all around him. The surrounding spirit chi was so dense that it had even turned into liquid droplets that flowed under his feet. The spirit chi here was definitely hundreds of times stronger than the outside world. As expected of the Tai dynasty, just a branch of the Valurium Palace alone had such a supreme spirit vein. Lin Xian didn't know how powerful the core and heart of the Tai dynasty was. The young cultivators around him were ecstatic and excited. They looked around curiously, and then locked their eyes on the front. There were countless clouds and mist there. A majestic mountain could be vaguely seen in the clouds. It was very tall, and it directly disappeared into the clouds. It was impossible to see where the top was. However, it was surrounded by countless rays of light. Halfway up the mountain, there were even rainbows gathered. It was like a paradise on earth. Let's go. Jin Jianfeng is right in front of us. The white-robed middle-aged man waved his hand and led Lin Xian and the others forward. The closer they got to the huge mountain range, the denser the spirit chi became. Even the multicolored light that filled the sky shone on Lin Xian and the others. Although the mountain range in front of them looked very close, there was still a long way to go if they really wanted to walk. Therefore, during this time, the white-robed middle-aged man said in a low voice, "Let me give you a general overview of Valurium Manor and Golden Sword Peak. The Tai dynasty has a total of 27 imperial mansions. Valurium Palace is one of them. There are 5 great peaks beneath Valurium Manor. Golden Sword Peak is one of them. Although Golden Sword Peak isn't the strongest, it isn't the weakest either. Golden Sword Peak has a large population. There are hundreds of thousands of cultivators, but only a few tens of thousands have been nurtured as core disciples. You are very lucky to be one of them. Our peak lord is the leader of Golden Sword Peak. Under him are 9 great elders, 72 envoys, and 1,000 attendants. Every attendant has hundreds to thousands of cultivators under them. After you enter Golden Sword Peak, you will be randomly assigned to one of the 1,000 attendants. From today onwards, you belong to Jin Jianfeng. You are also a member of Valurium Manor. However, while you enjoy the resources, you will also work for Valurium Manor. Of course, if you do well, you will be rewarded handsomely. You might even be accepted as a disciple by one of the 72 envoys. There are even those who are heaven-defying enough to be chosen by the 9 great elders. If that's the case, then you will have a meteoric rise. Everyone was very excited when they heard this. However, it was at this time that a young man asked, "Senior, what is your position in Golden Sword Peak?" They were very curious. Although the white-robed middle-aged man hadn't become a great expert yet, his aura was enough to make them feel terrified. There was no need to think. He must be one of the strongest 6-star kings. The white-robed middle-aged man didn't get angry when he heard the question. Instead he said, "I am a disciple of the 7th elder, one of the 9 great elders. Of course, I am just a good-for-nothing disciple. My senior brothers are much stronger than I am. The 7th elder." Everyone was surprised to hear this. Lin Xian nodded slightly. It seemed that the 9 great elders were second only to the peak lord. The white-robed middle-aged man in front of them was the 7th elder's disciple. He must be very noble. The white-robed middle-aged man smiled. "You don't have to envy me. If you perform well, there is a very good chance that you will be accepted as a disciple by one of the 9 great elders." Everyone clenched their fists when they heard this. They swore that they would do their best to perform well and strive to become a disciple of one of the elders. Lin Xian was much calmer. Becoming a disciple of an elder was not his goal. His goal was to enter the core of the Tai dynasty. Of course, this matter had to be done step by step. Gradually, they approached the huge mountain range in front of them. Soon, an extremely powerful spiritual energy rushed towards them. As for the crowd, they slowly descended. Lin Xian followed the white-robed middle-aged man and the others and landed together. However, at this time, he felt his heart palpitate. This was because he suddenly realized that there were 7 bright lights behind the mountain range. They connected to form a huge circle of light, flashing there. The 7 lights were very blurry, but they emitted a power that made one's heart tremble. Even a great expert would tremble in front of such power. Whoosh! Lin Xian took a deep breath as he resisted the pressure from the 7 beams of light. When he landed on the ground, he frowned and asked, "Senior, when I landed just now, I saw 7 rays of light in the distance. What is that?" "You saw it." The white-robed middle-aged man was surprised. He then looked at Lin Xian carefully and said, "That is the depths of the Valurium Palace. It is the core of the Valurium Palace. Ordinary people can't even get close to it. Even I am not qualified. I am afraid that other than the 5 peak lords and the elders, no one else is qualified to enter the core of the Valurium Palace. Chapter 1989. At the thought of this, Lin Xian clenched his fists. Power, he needed great power. Only then could he establish a foothold here. Although he was very strong now, he could compete with mighty figures. However, it was still not enough. Ordinary mighty figures were only 7-star kings. Above that there were 8-star kings, 9-star kings, and legendary invincible kings. He still had a long way to go. Finally, they landed on the huge mountain range in front of them. The young geniuses around them exclaimed. Lin Xian was also extremely surprised because the scene was too spectacular. The mountain peak in front of them was tens of thousands of feet tall, like a giant sword that was inserted into the ground. It towered into the clouds, and one could not see the bottom at a glance. It was surrounded by a sea of clouds, and there were spirit springs everywhere. There were even cranes flying around. That abundant aura made the pores on one's body open. Cultivating here, even an ordinary person would be far better than cultivating in the outside world. Lin Xian exclaimed in his heart. That was the benefit of having a heaven and earth spirit vein. The mountain range was very vast and huge, so Lin Xian and the others flew for a while before they saw the palaces and pavilions on the mountain peak. They were scattered in groups of 3 to 5, like stars in the sky, dotting the mountain range. And in the depths of the mountain range, there was a golden palace. It was golden and dazzling, like an immortal palace, towering in the clouds. That's the main palace of the Golden Sword Peak. It's also where they are going now. Follow me. Next, I'll bring you to the main palace to meet the elders. Whether you can be accepted as a disciple the first time will depend on your luck. Of course, even if you don't succeed the first time, there will be chances in the future. So you must perform well. Yes. Everyone cheered loudly, extremely excited. In the next moment, everyone flew into the sky, and Lin Xian followed. The outside of the palace shone with golden light, and the inside of the palace was even more dazzling and majestic. The group stood inside, as if they were standing in the sea and the starry sky. The entire palace was huge, no less than a huge city. You guys wait here for a while. The elders' envoys will be here soon. The white-robed middle-aged man said. After that, Lin Xian and the others waited quietly in the hall. Many of them were so excited that they were whispering to each other. Not long after, Lin Xian suddenly frowned and turned to look outside the hall. At this moment, the white-robed middle-aged man also looked out of the hall and said, Everyone be quiet. The elders and emissaries are here. In the next moment, Lin Xian and the others looked outside. Sure enough, they saw spiritual energy fluctuations in the sky. Light flashed, and then figures appeared one after another. Among these people, some were riding on red-crowned cranes, some were riding on clouds, and some were walking in the air. They were using all kinds of methods as if they were immortals. Hoo-hoo-hoo. Their speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the main hall. Then with a flash, those figures arrived in the main hall. At this time, the white-robed middle-aged man bowed respectfully to the various elders and emissaries. Behind him, Lin Xian and the other young geniuses also quickly bowed. Lin Xian knew that these should be the elders. However, there were not many of them. Only 4 of them came. There were also some others. They should be the emissaries of the 72 emissaries. In total, there were more than 10 of them. These people were extremely powerful. Among them, there were a few elders. Their eyes flickered with a sharp aura. Their auras had also reached the almighty level. Among them, the weakest was a 6-star king, at the great perfection level. They were only 1 step away from the almighty level. The powerful ones were unfathomable. Because they were all almighties, the difference in strength was very obvious. Obviously, these almighties were not ordinary almighties. They were very powerful. As soon as these people entered the main hall, they began to size up Lin Xian and the others. The white-robed middle-aged man stood respectfully at the side, while Lin Xian and the other young warriors stood in front. There were only about 20 of them in total. At this moment, they were enveloped by the gazes of those almighties, and they felt extremely pressured. Lin Xian was fine, because it was not his first time dealing with almighties. Therefore, he was still able to resist the pressure of such almighties. However, the other young martial artists were unable to resist. Fortunately, these almighties were only sizing them up and did not exert any special pressure on them. Otherwise, these people would not be able to withstand it. Buzz! At this moment, the sound of air being torn apart suddenly came from outside the hall. Then a huge golden light sword in the sky quickly rushed over. The light sword flickered with an incomparable golden light, illuminating the entire sky. In an instant, the sword light arrived in front of the main hall. In the next moment it disappeared. In the main hall, there were two more figures. Lin Xian and the others turned their heads and saw a man and a woman. The man was wearing a black robe and looked extraordinary. As for the women, they were all wearing long purple dresses and had beautiful appearances. Both of them looked to be about 30 years old, but that was not their real age. As for their auras, they had become even more powerful. They had already reached the almighty level. It seemed that their auras were even more powerful than those of these elders. They are also elders? Lin Xian was slightly surprised. The auras of these two people were very powerful. Greetings, guardians. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the white robe bowed respectfully. The other elders in the main hall also nodded slightly. The envoys also bowed. No need to be so polite. The peak master is in seclusion and has no time to come out, so the two of us are here, the woman in the purple dress said coldly. At this moment, the man in the black robe also spoke. Just do as you did before. Yes. The middle-aged man in the white robe bowed slightly, and the envoys of the elders in front also invited the two guardians in. Lin Xian and the others were puzzled, but at this moment, the middle-aged man in the white robe sent a voice transmission. The two guardians had a very special status, second only to the hall master, and even higher than the 9 elders. However, they usually did not care about the secular world, so they did not expect to come this time. The two of them sat on all the elders' seats, and then closed their eyes slightly. Chapter 1990. Hearing this, the warriors around Lin Xian frowned. Some of them even snorted, showing their dissatisfaction. That was because they had gone through a lot of hardships to get here. However, they were being called ordinary. How could these geniuses accept this? Even Lin Xian frowned slightly. It seemed that the young men in front of him were the disciples of the elders. The auras of those people were strong, and their strength far surpassed the geniuses around him. Moreover, if they were accepted as disciples by the elders, their talent must not be bad. Therefore, those people looked down on these newcomers. Lin Xian was relatively calm in the face of such discussions. This was because he no longer needed to rely on other people's comments to boost his confidence. However, the young geniuses around him were indignant. Yes, there isn't even a late-stage 6-star king among these people. It seems that their cultivation is really weak. Not only that, but they are also relatively old. Although resources are also needed for cultivation in the future, talent is still the most important. Without talent, it would be a waste of resources no matter how much you give them. Indeed, there was a popular saying in the cultivation world: talent determined the upper limit. With the same amount of resources, the more talented one was, the faster one's cultivation would rise. If one's talent was ordinary, although they could rise quickly in the early stages with a huge amount of resources, their speed would slow down when they reached a certain level. They might even never be able to break through. This was the difference in talent. In the eyes of the elders and disciples, the people below were also ordinary. The elders and disciples still wanted to say something, but at this moment, the purple-robed woman sitting above suddenly opened her beautiful eyes. Immediately, she emitted a sharp aura. Then the elders and disciples all shut their mouths, not daring to speak. At this moment, the white-robed youth, by Qianqi, also stood up and bowed to the left and right guardians and the elders. Then he said, "Seniors, please allow me to introduce these people to you." These young warriors were all selected by the Moving Mountain General and the Leaving Fire General. They are the people who can enter the prince's mansion this time. The white-robed middle-aged man introduced them one by one. He recounted the performance of these people in the selection competition to the elders and seniors. He spoke very carefully and did not miss a single detail. The entire hall was silent. Only the white-clothed middle-aged man's words echoed in the hall. However, the elders remained silent. Even the protector's eyes were flickering. However, he had no intention of asking. This meant that they were not very interested. Although their disciples' words were stopped by the protector, the elders still agreed with their disciples' opinion. These people's talents were ordinary, and none of them were particularly outstanding. Therefore, he was not worthy of them taking him in as a disciple. Since no one was interested in these people, the purple-clothed woman opened her beautiful eyes again. Her cold voice rang out. If that's the case, by Qianqi, take them down there to train. Don't worry. Although you won't have the chance this time, if you perform well in the future, you might still be able to catch the eye of these elders. If any of you can show great potential in the future, perhaps the right guardian, and I will be tempted to take you in as disciples. She then waved her hand gently, indicating for Bai Qianqi to take the people away. Since the left protector had spoken, those elders also stood up and prepared to leave with their disciples. However, Bai Qianqi did not move. He said again, "Protector, there's one more person I haven't introduced." Hearing this, the purple-clothed woman was stunned and opened her beautiful eyes again. As for those elders, their expressions sunk. They seemed to be unwilling to do so. The left protector had already spoken, and they were all prepared to leave. However, Bai Qianqi still had someone to introduce. Wasn't he deliberately wasting their time? He had already seen these people. Their talents were ordinary, and none of them had reached the late-stage 6-star king realm. In other words, their potential was not particularly great. Thus, whether or not he could become a mighty figure was still a difficult problem. Therefore, they would not accept such people. Therefore, they were not interested in the people Bai Qianqi was going to introduce next. However, Bai Qianqi walked up to Lin Xian and said respectfully again, "The last person I want to introduce is him." Hearing this, the elders' envoys, and even the left protector all turned to look at Lin Xian. Immediately, the pressure on Lin Xian increased, but he still looked calm. Not bad. He's able to face so many people without batting an eyelid. He's really good. However, his cultivation is too weak. He's only an early-stage 6-star king. I'm not interested in such a person. An elder shook his head slightly. The eyes of the others also flickered. It was obvious that they had seen through Lin Xian's cultivation with a single glance, and their interest was immediately dampened. The disciples behind them were about the same age as Lin Xian, but their cultivation had already reached the late-stage 6-star king realm. Although it was only the difference between the early stage and late stage, it was impossible to break through without more than 10 years, even if one was a genius. The older one was, the higher the cultivation, the better the talent. Lin Xian's age and cultivation might be a genius in other places, but in the eyes of these elders, they did not think highly of him. At this moment, a short and fat elder in a red robe also spoke. "Bai Qianqi, your eyesight is getting worse and worse. What kind of disciple does old 7th teach?" This red-robed elder was the 8th elder. Bai Qianqi's master was the 7th elder, and the two of them were not on good terms. Therefore, when he saw Bai Qianqi mention an early-stage 6-star king, the 8th elder sneered. Bai Qianqi also snorted in his heart. He did not have a good impression of the 8th elder. However, the other party was an elder, and he did not dare to openly contradict him, because if he did, he would be punished by Jin Jianfeng. However, the other party's arrogant attitude really made him unhappy. Therefore, he planned to use Lin Xian to contradict the other party. Since the other party looked down on Lin Xian, he wanted to see what the 8th elder's expression would be when he mentioned Lin Xian's battle achievements. At this moment, the purple-robed woman also spoke. "Oh, there's one more person you haven't introduced. You left him for last. Could it be that there's something special about this kid?" As a protector, the purple-robed woman was more patient. Therefore, she asked in a deep voice, "To be honest, protector, this little brother is really a little special. Moreover, I believe that with this little brother's talent, ordinary elders are really not qualified to take him as a disciple." Chapter 1991. The eighth elder snorted when he saw Bai Qianqi's gaze. Anger burned in his eyes. How dare he say that he didn't have the right to take this kid as a disciple? What a joke. He was one of the 9 great elders. Although he was ranked 8th, he was still an elder. Moreover, he had reached the level of a great expert. That was a terrifying existence. Therefore, the 8th elder said darkly, "What kind of genius is he that even elders like us don't have the right to take him in? Bai Qianqi, I can see that your eyesight has deteriorated, but your ability to talk big has improved a lot. It seems that old 7th really knows how to take in disciples." Bai Qianqi gnashed his teeth in anger when he heard the 8th elder mocking him again. However, he was only a small disciple. He didn't dare oppose an elder. Therefore, he could only cup a fist salute and look at the purple-clad woman. The other elders were surprised as well. They sized up Lin Xian once more. And when they discovered that he was really just an early-stage 6-star king realm youth, they immediately revealed doubtful looks. Bai Qianqi, tell us, what's so special about this kid? He's just an early 6-star king. You're not trying to fool us with him, are you? The purple-clad woman was also very curious. She nodded slightly and said, "Tell us your reason, Bai Qianqi." Yes. Bai Qianqi didn't dare delay when the purple-clad woman spoke. He hurriedly introduced, "This young genius is Lin Xian. He just arrived at Valurium Manor today, and was chosen by the Mountain Razor General." What? Just arrived at Valurium Manor? That's impossible. Many people in the Great Hall were in an uproar when they heard this. The elder's disciples especially cried out in surprise. Bai Qianqi, don't lie. How can someone be chosen by the Mountain Razor General on the first day? That's right. Someone who just arrived on the first day doesn't even have the right to participate in the selection. Bai Qianqi, you're obviously lying. Many shook their heads. The 8th elder's disciples sneered. I'm not lying. He didn't participate in the selection. This brother Lin provoked the Wolf of War on his first day here. After that, he started a great battle with the 4 gang leaders of Wolf of War and the 300 elites of Wolf of War. He single-handedly defeated 300 elites and 4 sect masters. There's actually such a thing. Hearing this, the envoys and elders were also moved. As for the disciples of the elders, they were all stunned. One by one, they opened their eyes wide in disbelief. They had also heard of the Wolf of War. They didn't care about Wolf of War, including Wolf of War's gang leaders. However, if the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites attacked together, no matter how strong they wouldn't be able to resist. After all, although they were geniuses, they were not almighties. Moreover, these people had never heard of any 6-star king who could contend against such a lineup. Therefore, their first reaction was disbelief. However, Bai Qianqi said loudly, "I can't lie about this. All 200,000 people outside the mansion saw it. Moreover, the moving mountain general and the colored glass general also saw it with their own eyes. If the elders don't believe me, you can ask them." Originally, these elders and disciples didn't believe it at all. However, at this moment, they saw Bai Qianqi's confident look. They were very confused. Could it be that this kid in front of them really had a way to contend against so many experts? This time, even the purple-clothed woman was interested. She said coldly, "Bai Qianqi, continue." Yes, Bai Qianqi continued. This brother Lin attracted the attention of the moving mountain general after defeating the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites. Then, the moving mountain general suppressed his cultivation and used the strength of a 6-star king to fight this brother Lin in front of us. In the end, the two of them tied. What? He tied with the moving mountain general? Hearing this, those elders also cried out in surprise, their eyes wide open. They looked as if they had seen a ghost. At this moment, the black-clothed man who had his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes. His sharp gaze pierced through the void. Is this true? The black-clothed man looked at Bai Qianqi and Lin Xian. Of course it is true. How would I dare to lie? And before I came, the mountain-moving great general specifically instructed me to introduce this little brother Lin to me. Moreover, he said that if the Golden Sword Peak didn't take good care of this little brother here, he would personally talk to the Peak Master. Whoosh! As soon as these words were said, Even the elders gasped and felt their scalps go numb. To be honest, they didn't believe that this young man in front of them could tie with the moving mountain general. Although the mountain-moving great general had suppressed his cultivation, they knew how terrifying the mountain-moving great general was. These elders didn't have the confidence to suppress the moving mountain general, let alone an early 6-star king in front of them. However, from the looks of it, he actually did it. However, how did he do it? It was hard for them to imagine. However, among them, one of the blue-robed elders was the first to react. He said with a smile, "Why don't you let this kid join my sect? I'll train him well." As soon as these words were said, the others were shocked, and then came to their senses. A black-robed elder said, "Old Five, what do you mean? You're snatching him so soon? Didn't you look down on him before?" "I was dozing off and didn't notice. Only now did I realize that this kid actually has such talent. He's fated to be with me." Hearing the blue-robed elder's words, the corners of the young disciples' mouths twitched. Damn, how shameless can you be? Previously, these people didn't care about Lin Xian at all. However, after hearing about Lin Xian's miraculous battle results, they just started snatching him. This was too shameless. Of course, they didn't dare to say this out loud. They could only think about it in their hearts. However, while they didn't dare to say it, the other elders dared to say it. Among them, the black-robed elder said, "Old Five, what you're doing is very shameless. I think this kid is fated to be with me." "Third brother, you're snatching people too? Aren't all the spots for the disciples behind you full?" Another elder spoke. This time it was the fourth elder. Then, the others also expressed their willingness to accept Lin Xian as their disciple. The eighth elder's face was flushed red, and he was so angry that he gritted his teeth. This was because he was sneering and mocking Lin Xian previously, thinking that he didn't deserve to be his disciple. However, now it seemed that he didn't have the right to accept Lin Xian as his disciple. Whether it was the fifth elder, the fourth elder, or the third elder, he couldn't compete with them. Chapter 1992. He wanted nothing more than to dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it. He didn't want to stand here and embarrass himself. At this time, the blue-robed elder smiled and said, "Little guy, you should join my sect. I recently took in a girl. She's about the same age as you, and she's very pretty. You could say that she's a national beauty. If you can join my sect, you might be able to have a wonderful relationship with this little girl." Damn, this elder Zhang is too shameless. The other disciples almost spat out blood when they heard this. The other elders' mouths twitched as well. The blue-robed elder was all smiles. If Lin Xian was really as amazing as the rumors said, then he was definitely a peerless genius. So what if he used a honey trap to lure him to his side then? It was just a female disciple. He'd be willing even if it was 2 or 3. The third elder gritted his teeth when he heard the blue-robed elder's words. He hadn't expected the elder to use a honey trap as well. However, he wasn't going to give up. In the next moment, he spoke in a low voice. "Little child, you must be very strong to be able to contend against the Mountain Razor General. I have a set of glazed Vajra fist here. It's a top fist technique that walks the path of strength and ferocity. It's very valuable. If you can become my disciple, I can teach you this glazed Vajra fist." "What? The glazed Vajra fist? You're actually willing to take out such a treasure?" The other elders exclaimed in surprise after hearing this. Yes, the glazed Vajra fist was no ordinary technique. It was one of the top fist techniques in Valyrian Manor. It was extremely valuable. Apart from the core members of Valyrian Manor, only the third elder and his disciple had the right to practice it. Now the third elder had taken out this technique to recruit Lin Xian. The other elders weren't willing to give up either. They all took out their own treasures to attract Lin Xian to their sect. "Alright, let's stop fighting. You're all over 1,000 years old. Why are you still so childish?" Right at this moment, the violet-clothed woman smiled. Hearing this, the elders in the hall stopped arguing. However, they still looked at Lin Xian with fiery gazes. At this moment, the eighth elder sneered. Then, he turned his head slightly and gave the disciple behind him a look. The disciple behind him immediately came to a realization, causing a cold grin to appear on his face. In the next moment, the disciple stood up and bowed to the surroundings, the two protectors and the various elders. I have a suggestion. I don't know what the seniors think. In any case, we have only heard of this little brother in front of us. We have never seen his strength. I think it would be better for me to fight against this little brother. Firstly, I will be able to help the elders verify the strength of this little brother. Furthermore, if this little brother is truly talented, it won't be too late for the elders to fight over him. At this point, he looked at Lin Xian with a smile and a trace of cold light in his eyes. Hearing this, the elders nodded slightly. Indeed, they had not seen Lin Xian's strength. What if what Bai Qianqi said was false? If Lin Xian was not a genius, then they would not only lose their treasures after paying a huge price, but they might also be ridiculed by others. Immediately, the elders nodded in agreement. The two protectors also looked at each other. Then the black-robed man said, "All right. However, since it's a sparring session, let's stop here." "Yes, sir." The eighth elder's disciple was overjoyed when he heard this. As for the eighth elder, he narrowed his eyes and revealed a cold smile. He did not believe that this kid in front of him had any outstanding talent. Therefore, he decided to send out his disciple to test him. As long as his opponent was not strong, he would definitely be defeated. When that happened, he would like to see which elder would be willing to accept such a piece of trash. The eighth elder was very satisfied and confident with his disciple. That disciple had short red hair and a dignified appearance. He was extremely handsome, and there was fire dancing in his eyes. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Lin Xian. He said loudly, "My name is Sun Yi, and am the 8th elder's disciple. My cultivation has reached the peak 6-star king level. Since you can compete with the moving mountain general, it shouldn't be much of a problem for you to fight me, right?" He deliberately mentioned the moving mountain general, so that Lin Xian would not reject him. This was because he was a peak 6-star king, and he was very powerful. Below the almighty level, other than those at the peak 6-star king level, no one else was his match. Seeing this scene, the elders and young warriors all looked on with interest. They all stepped back and made an empty space. Bai Qianqi also looked calm because he had seen Lin Xian's strength with his own eyes. Therefore, he was not worried. Therefore, he retreated to the side of the crowd. Lin Xian looked at the handsome young man with short red hair in front of him. His eyes flickered, and then he said in a deep voice, "Just you? Doesn't the 8th elder have another disciple? Why don't the two of you come at me together? This way, your strength will be more balanced." "What? Together?" Hearing this, everyone was stunned. That was right. The 8th elder had 2 disciples. Apart from them, there was another young man. However, no matter how they looked at it, Lin Xian's words were too arrogant. He wanted to challenge 2 peak 6-star almighties. He was simply courting death. Humph. The 8th elder snorted coldly, and his expression was extremely cold. The other party was actually so arrogant. He was really ignorant. Sun Yi even roared, "Kid, you're courting death." He did not expect that the other party would dare to look down on him. It was really unforgivable. "My senior brother doesn't have to do anything. I can deal with you alone. 3 moves. I only need 3 moves to beat you to the ground." Originally, Sun Yi wanted to say 1 move. However, seeing how everyone praised Lin Xian so much, he was not very confident. Therefore, he decided to use 3 moves to beat the other party down. He thought that 3 moves should be enough. Lin Xian laughed. 3 moves? You're too cowardly." He stretched out a finger and said loudly, "1 move. I only need 1 move to determine the winner." He was very calm as if he was not in a competition. "Damn kid, you're too arrogant. I'll let you know what it means to keep a low profile." Sun Yi roared, and his expression became extremely ferocious. In the next moment, 2 balls of red flames appeared in his eyes. Soon, the flames on his body rose and formed a flame armor that covered his body. Chapter 1993. The temperature in the main hall rose rapidly in an instant. It was like a furnace, and everyone was sweating profusely. The new martial artists were shocked. They kept retreating and channeling their spiritual power to resist the surrounding heat. As for the disciples of those elders, they all cried out in alarm. 10,000 Fire Sky Fist. This Sun Yi is going to be serious. Yes, this is the 8th Elder's ultimate skill. I didn't expect Sun Yi to use it. It seems that Sun Yi is really angry. Haha, that kid is really dead. Someone sneered. Once the 10,000 Fire Sky Fist is used, even a peak 6-star martial artist wouldn't dare to take it head-on. That kid is only a beginner 6-star. Let's see how he can resist it. Cold laughter could be heard. Obviously, everyone thought that Lin Xian couldn't resist it. Although everyone didn't think highly of Lin Xian was very calm. He looked at Sun Yi, whose aura kept rising, and then waved his hand. You're courting death. Sun Yi was enraged because the other party's contemptuous attitude made him very angry. He was just a beginner 6-star martial artist. What was there to be arrogant about? How dare he be arrogant in front of him? He really didn't know what was good for him. Therefore, at the next moment, he snorted and threw out a fiery red fist. In the sky, thousands of flames jumped and turned into a fiery fist, charging toward Lin Xian. The terrifying heat wave was like a ferocious beast that wanted to engulf Lin Xian. Sun Yi was really angry with this punch. The surrounding martial artists exclaimed, and the elders looked at each other. Why do I feel that Sun Yi can kill him with one punch? I think so too. If no one comes to save him, that kid is definitely dead. The elders and disciples were full of contempt. The elders' eyes were also flickering as they stared at Lin Xian. They wanted to see if this kid was as powerful as the rumors said. Facing the terrifying fist, Lin Xian's eyes also focused. Blue frost quickly condensed on his body. Frost palm. With a wave of his palm, the sky was filled with snow. Snowflakes fell from the sky, and a thick layer of frost formed on the ground. For a moment, half of the hall was filled with ice and snow while the other half was filled with lava. Ice and fire collided, creating an intense impact. Originally, these two attributes were mutually exclusive. At this moment, when they were displayed by the two young experts, it was incomparably terrifying. In an instant, the two energies collided non-stop, as if they were going to destroy everything in the world. Fortunately, at this moment, the black-robed middle-aged man waved his hand, and immediately shot out a screen of light. It protected the entire hall, preventing the energy from destroying it. Frost martial artist? No wonder he was so arrogant. However, do you think you can restrain me? It's useless. Sun Yi sneered, his eyes filled with contempt. He was very confident in himself. Whether it was his fist technique or his cultivation, he was above his opponent. Therefore, he couldn't think of any way that his opponent could defeat him. But in the next moment his expression changed. The contempt in his eyes disappeared, and was replaced by shock and disbelief. This was because he discovered that his fiery red fist was covered in frost, as if it was about to be frozen. How is that possible? Damn it, melt it for me. Sun Yi roared crazily. The heat in his body surged even more, as if he was a fire god. The monstrous heat wave shattered the void, but it was unable to melt the ice. Soon the punch he threw out was frozen. Not only that, that huge blue frost palm, carrying the power of ice and snow, quickly enveloped him. What? The surrounding elders opened their eyes wide as if they had seen a ghost, unable to believe this scene. As for those elders, they started to frown. How was this possible? Eighth elder's face was even darker. He did not believe that Sun Yi would lose to his opponent, because there was no reason. Whether it was cultivation or martial skills, Sun Yi far surpassed his opponent. But why would this scene appear? He could not understand. And under the blue frost palm, Sun Yi roared crazily. His entire body was covered in flames, turning into strange runes. It attacked in all directions. However, it was useless. Not only was his move broken, but his body was also quickly covered in frost, freezing him into an ice sculpture. Ka ka ka. No. Sun Yi screamed crazily, wanting to burn all his power. But in the end he was still frozen. The expression on his face was frozen with deep fear, and Lin Xian's previous words were still echoing in his mind. One move could end the battle. For a moment, everyone in the entire hall was stunned. Even the left and right custodians exchanged glances with one another in astonishment. At this moment, they all remembered Lin Xian's previous words. One move to end the battle. Originally, They thought that the young man was arrogant and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. But they did not expect that the young man really had such strength. He defeated 8th Elder's proud disciple in one move. Humph! The 8th Elder could not bear to watch any longer. With a wave of his sleeve, a fierce flame turned into a half-moon arc. It instantly hit the frost palm in front of him and immediately cut it open. He saved Sun Yi. However, at this moment, Sun Yi's entire body was covered in frost. His entire body was trembling like a snowman. Not only his body, but the spiritual power in his body was also frozen. He even felt that his soul was about to be frozen. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were even more shocked. 8th Elder's face was extremely gloomy. He had lost, completely lost, and there was no luck. His opponent's strength was beyond his expectations. Therefore, 8th Elder's face was very ugly, as if he had eaten a dead mouse. The left and right guardians looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They knew that Lin Xian was definitely a genius, and a genius who could fight above his level. This kind of person was very terrifying. Their true combat strength could not be measured by their cultivation level. Genius, he's definitely a peerless genius. It was really rare to see someone who could fight above his level, especially 2 or 3 small realms. Amazing! No wonder he's chosen by the mountain-moving general. Exclamations of surprise rang out one after another. The eyes of those elders were spitting fire as they stared at Lin Xian, as if they were looking at a peerless beauty. Previously they still had some doubts. But now, after seeing this battle, they no longer had any doubts. They had to get their hands on such a precious genius. This was because they knew that with Lin Xian's talent, with a little bit of training, he would definitely be able to rise quickly. In that case, whoever took in Lin Xian would have a greatly improved status in Jin Jianfeng in the future. This was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, these elders would not give up at all. Kid, if you join my sect, it'll definitely make you an almighty as soon as possible. Chapter 1994. What you have, I have. What you don't have, I have too. What do you have to make him a mighty figure as soon as possible? On the other side, the 3rd elder also snorted coldly. Then he said, You won't regret it if you join my sect. The 2 elders began to argue, opposing each other with equal harshness. The atmosphere in the field was getting more and more heated. When the other elders saw that the 3rd elder and the blue-robed elder were arguing, they gave up. They couldn't win against the 2 of them at all. They shook their heads and sighed. They could only watch this fight with the mood of watching a show. 3rd brother, you're too overbearing. What do you mean I don't have what I have? The blue-robed elder was unconvinced. Your disciple quota is already full. What's the point of fighting? 5th elder, you can't say that. Anyone would want such a genius. Since you and I both want him, why don't we have a fight? Sure, let's do it. I'm not afraid of you. The blue-robed elder also rolled up his sleeves. Their auras continued to climb to the peak, as if 2 invisible mountains were colliding in the air, emitting sonorous sounds. A surging river appeared above the blue-robed elder's head. It was like a heavenly river, endless and sweeping in all directions. On the other hand, the 3rd elder's Buddhist light shone. A glassy light appeared on his body, making him look like a Buddha, incomparably valiant. Since the 2 of you are here today, let's see who will win in the end. The 3rd elder's voice sounded, and the glassy light on his body became brighter and brighter. Humph! The blue-robed elder snorted coldly. The heavenly river above his head surged and surrounded his body like a heavenly snake, shining brightly. All right, the 2 of you stop fighting. They were almost 2,000 years old, but they were still like children, fighting over a disagreement. Weren't they afraid of being laughed at by the younger generation? The woman in purple frowned when she saw this scene. The black-robed man also said, How about this? Let this kid decide who he wants to be his master. Since the black-robed man had spoken, the 3rd elder and the blue-robed elder stopped fighting. Thus, the 2 of them snorted lightly and retracted their powerful auras. Then, their fiery gazes once again stared at Lin Xian. The blue-robed elder was the first to speak. Little doll, I see that you are an ice element martial artist, while I am a water element martial artist. Ice and water are both of the same element. If you follow me, you can definitely increase your ice power. So what if he has water? Not only does he have ice, but he also has strength and a strong physique. Being able to contend against the mountain-moving general proves this point. My glazed Vajra fist is definitely most suitable for him. On the other side, the three elders were unwilling to show weakness. For a moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian. As for Lin Xian, he was frowning slightly. He had not expected this to happen. To be honest, he did not want to choose either of the two elders. Therefore, he was now thinking about how to reject the two of them without hurting their faces too much. However, he hadn't decided yet. At this time, another golden light came from outside the main hall. It was like a golden lightning bolt, arriving above the main hall in an instant. Immediately, the golden light shone and turned into a blurry figure. Peak Master. When they saw the golden figure, everyone was stunned. In the next moment they all bowed to the void. You don't have to fight. I will take this young man as my disciple, the golden figure said slowly. The Peak Master will take him as his disciple personally. Everyone was shocked. They had not expected that the fight this time would attract the Peak Master. Moreover, the Peak Master would personally take someone as his disciple. This time they were too shocked. One had to know that the Peak Master had not taken in any disciples for 500 years. The Peak Master had a total of 2 disciples, both of whom were taken in 500 years ago. In the past 500 years, he had not taken in anyone. They had not expected that he would take in another disciple this time. Brother Lin, hurry up and thank him. Bai Qianqi whispered to him through voice transmission because he realized that Lin Xian was still in a daze. Lin Xian was indeed stunned. He had not expected the situation to change again. However, he soon heaved a sigh of relief. This was good too. He did not want to be the disciple of those 2 elders in the first place. Now that a Peak Master had appeared, it gave him a choice. Therefore, he quickly cupped his fists towards the golden figure in the sky. Seeing this scene, the 3rd elder and Elder Lan Bao sighed. They knew that things could no longer be changed. The other elders quickly congratulated the Peak Master for taking in such a talented disciple. The golden figure laughed loudly and gave some instructions before disappearing into the void. Lin Xian could tell that this was not the true body of the other party, but a manifestation of the other party's mystique. However, he did not care because he had not come here to become a disciple in the first place. He only wanted to find information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. After the golden figure left, the hall fell silent again. Then, the purple-robed woman said, "All right, except for Lin Xian who has been taken in as a disciple by the Peak Master. You can distribute the others. Take them away, and let them experience it. If they perform well in the future, they will be judged again." Next, the envoys distributed the remaining new disciples, and this matter was considered to have come to an end. "Brother Lin, congratulations," Bai Qianqi said with a smile. "It's nothing. I was just lucky." Lin Xian smiled. "You don't know, but the Peak Master of the Golden Sword Peak is an unparalleled almighty. He only has 2 disciples. Including you, it's the 3rd. Being a disciple of the Peak Master is different from being a disciple of the other elders. The resources you can enjoy and the mystiques you learn are definitely beyond your imagination." "Who are the other 2 disciples?" Lin Xian asked. "Senior sister Qin Lan and second senior brother Qixing. These 2 people are already almighties now. I reckon they will send someone to pick you up in a while." 2 almighty disciples. Lin Xian was surprised. He did not expect the Peak Master to be so impressive that his 2 disciples had already become almighties. It seemed that they had far surpassed those elders. "Brother Lin, there's one more thing I need to remind you of. Although you've become the Peak Lord's disciple, since you have become a disciple of the Peak Master, you still have to be careful. Because senior sister Qin Lan has a bad temper, don't provoke her. However, second senior brother Qixing is quite kind. If you have any questions you can ask him," Bai Qianqi said softly. Bai Qianqi said in a low voice. Evidently, he was deeply afraid of that eldest senior sister Qin Lan. Just as they were talking, a bright voice rang out in the sky, following which, a gigantic crane flew over. There was a young man and a young woman standing on top of the red-crowned crane. They were very beautiful and their aura was that of a 6-star king. Chapter 1995. Little Yu Datong. Bai Qianqi also greeted them with a smile. Then he said to Lin Xian, "These two are second senior brother Kixing's disciples." Then, Bai Qianqi said to the two people on the red-crowned crane, "Little Yu Datong, this is the Peak Master's new disciple. Greetings, young Uncle Master." The young man and woman on the red-crowned crane hurriedly bowed to Lin Xian. "You don't have to be so polite." Lin Xian smiled. He did not expect that he would suddenly become an Uncle Master. At this moment, Bai Qianqi said, "Brother Lin, logically speaking, I should also call you Uncle Master because the Peak Master's disciple has the same status as an elder. And we are the elder's disciples, so according to seniority, I should also call you Uncle Master." "Forget it, Brother Bai. Don't make fun of me." Lin Xian shook his head. Lin Xian felt very strange to have someone so much older than him call him Uncle Master. Although he felt a little uncomfortable, he knew that this was very normal behavior. It was like this in the cultivation world. Seniority was not determined by age, but by one's actions. Even if one was only 7 or 8 years old. If one's cultivation had reached the almighty level, a group of old men would probably respectfully call one a senior. "Uncle Master, please come with us," the two people on the red-crowned crane said respectfully. Then, Lin Xian nodded and said goodbye to Bai Qianqi. Then his figure swayed, and he got on the red-crowned crane. The red-crowned crane spread its wings and flew like a shooting star, quickly streaking across the sky. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the red-crowned crane finally slowed down and stopped in midair. "Young Uncle Master, we're here," the two people next to him said respectfully. Lin Xian nodded slightly and looked ahead. Then, his figure swayed, and he left the red-crowned crane. The young man and woman behind him also landed. Then, the red-crowned crane cried and spread its wings to fly away. "Uncle Master, please." The young man and woman led the way, guiding Lin Xian towards the huge and majestic palace. The palace was extremely luxurious. After entering, Lin Xian realized that the floor of the palace was actually paved with spirit stones. This was truly extravagant and extravagant. Most people wouldn't dare to use spirit stones to pave a road. Even if they wanted to, they didn't have the financial resources to do so. Lin Xian walked on the floor paved with spirit stones, and followed the young man and woman in front of him into the main hall. There was a figure standing in front of him. That person was currently sitting cross-legged on the ground. Mysterious runes were flickering around him. His jet-black hair fluttered even though there was no wind. His eyes were tightly shut, and his cheeks were as sharp as a knife. Sensing that someone had entered, the man in front slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were long and narrow and deep, as vast and boundless as the stars. "Master." The young man and woman at the front bowed respectfully. "Mm." The black-haired man nodded slightly. In the next moment, his gaze swept past the young man and woman, and landed on Lin Xian at the back. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face. As his smile spread, his chiseled face no longer became sharp. Instead, it was replaced by a touch of gentleness. "You should be Master's new junior brother, right?" The black-haired man in front of him said softly. "That's right." Lin Xian nodded, then cupped his fists. "Greetings, senior brother." In the next moment, the black-haired man slowly stood up. His body was slender like a sharp sword. "Although you've been accepted as Master's disciple, you still have to undergo some tests to obtain Master's true inheritance. Let me remind you, this test isn't simple. It's even a little dangerous. Of course, you can refuse. That way, you'll still be Master's disciple but only in name. You won't be able to learn Master's extensive and profound abhijna. So, junior brother, are you willing to participate in this test?" Test? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He didn't know about this before, but he was very curious about what this test was. Therefore, after pondering for a moment, he nodded slightly. "Yes. Very good, Master didn't misjudge you." The black-haired man smiled. Then, he stretched out his hand and quickly formed a seal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Imprints formed in the air. then formed a strange pattern. Suddenly, thousands of rays of light were emitted from those imprints. Not only that, mysterious runes appeared on the crystal floor under his feet. Countless rays of light wrapped around Lin Xian's body. Lin Xian didn't resist. He knew that there was no danger, and that he should have entered the so-called test. When the surrounding rays of light disappeared, Lin Xian looked around. He was surrounded by endless white fog. It was so vast that he couldn't see the end. However, in the next moment, his surroundings changed instantly. Mountains, rivers, palaces, and pavilions appeared around him. In front of him was endless white fog, which condensed into a beautiful figure. Morong Qingcheng. The figure that condensed was Morong Qingcheng. However, after her, the figures of Zhao Shui and Xin Jingqiu condensed. The three of them were exactly the same. It was impossible to tell them apart. Their gazes were like limpid autumn water, and they shrouded Lin Xian. Xianer. At this moment, a calm voice sounded behind Lin Xian. Then, Lin Xian's body trembled, and he turned around abruptly. He saw a middle-aged man standing there. He was like a god of war, handsome and extraordinary. "Father!" Lin Xian exclaimed subconsciously. However, he soon frowned, because he knew that everything was an illusion. It wasn't real. The surrounding scenery also changed crazily. Finally, it formed a huge mansion. The vermilion door flickered with light. On the door plaque, 3 large words were written in flamboyant calligraphy. Sword Pool Manor. Was this the first test? Looking at everything around him, Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. Follow his heart. Lin Xian smiled and took a step forward, holding the hands of the 3 women beside him. Then, he walked towards the Sword Pool Mansion with the tall middle-aged man. Lin Xian was going through the test, while the young man and woman in the main hall had already retreated. Only the black-haired man was left. There was a ball of light floating in front of him, displaying the scenes that Lin Xian had experienced. When he saw Lin Xian holding the hands of the 3 beauties and entering the Sword Pool Mansion, he suddenly exclaimed softly, "Follow his heart." This guy is really bold. Isn't he afraid of getting lost? This junior brother's method is quite unique. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. Then, the void fluctuated and a blue figure appeared in the main hall. She was dressed in a long blue dress that was like the sea. This woman had an exquisite appearance, and her jet black hair was tied up with a red string. His eyes were very bright, but there was a hint of sharpness in them. Chapter 1996. Senior sister, you're here. The black-haired man smiled when he saw the woman in blue. He was the Peak Master's second disciple. And the woman in blue was the eldest disciple, Qin Lan. Qin Lan said coldly, as she stared at the ball of light floating in the air. This person's method is actually the same as that person's. They both chose such a dangerous method. Looks like he's not an easy person. Senior sister, there's no need to be nervous. It's very easy to lose oneself by following one's heart. Even if he can persist, he probably won't be able to persist for long, 7-star said indifferently. However, Qin Lan's expression was ice cold. Don't forget what happened 300 years ago. Don't forget that there was a person who used the same method 300 years ago and stayed inside for 100 years. One day outside was equivalent to 100 years inside. 7-star's face stiffened, and even the smile on his face disappeared. But he quickly returned to his senses and smiled. Senior sister, you're overthinking. After all, that person is a peerless genius. One can only come across it by chance. Not everyone is able to persevere for such a long period of time. I wonder how long this brat can persist. Inside the test, Lin Xian, Morong Qingcheng, Zhao Shui, and Xin Jingqiu started their lives. Not only them, but Lin Xian's parents, grandfather, uncle, and the entire Lin family also started their lives. They started their lives together in Sword Pool Manor. This kind of life was very peaceful and tranquil. Outside, Qin Lan and 7-star's expressions were also extremely solemn, because Lin Xian had stayed inside for a day already. In other words, he had stayed inside for 100 years. This made them extremely solemn. This was because the person from 300 years ago only stayed inside for a day. But now Lin Xian had stayed inside for a day and still hadn't come out. This made both of them somewhat anxious. This was because the first test tested one's heart, which was very important. Furthermore, it was extremely mysterious and couldn't be described with words. It was even more impossible to figure it out because everyone was different. However, they knew that the longer they stayed inside, the greater their future achievements and the broader their future martial path. Furthermore, there were many choices for the first stage. For example, he and Qin Lan had chosen a different path, which was to directly kill everything in their way to clear the stage. The other was the same as Lin Xian, who chose to accept the illusory realm and experience countless baptisms. The latter choice was extremely dangerous, because over time, the cultivator would get lost in it. Would they not be able to distinguish between reality and illusion? However, if he could persevere in the end, the benefits he would gain would be self-evident. First of all, their martial hearts would become firmer, and even their soul force would be nourished and enhanced. Lin Xian stayed for an entire day, making Qin Lan and Big Dipper very uneasy. In the middle of the mountain range, there was a palace that was surrounded by mist. A golden figure was sitting cross-legged inside. There was also a ball of light in front of him. At this moment, the scene of Lin Xian also appeared. The golden figure looked at the ball of light and nodded slightly. He was very satisfied. One day passed quickly, and then the next. This kind of life was very pleasant, like a quagmire that could make people sink deeply into it. However, Lin Xian opened his eyes inside the illusory realm at this moment. Golden light flickered in his eyes, and all the illusory realms were destroyed in an instant. Lin Xian took a step out and left the illusory realm. This guy actually stayed for 2 days. He stayed an entire day longer than the person from 300 years ago. That was an additional 100 years of experience. This made 7-star and Qin Lan very uneasy. Humph. Qin Lan coldly snorted. Her tone was extremely cold. She turned around and directly left the great hall. Meanwhile, the black-haired man, 7-star, looked at the ball of light with flickering eyes that carried a trace of coldness. Lin Xian left the illusory realm's test, but did not return to reality. Instead, he came to another space. The surrounding scenery changed drastically. Ancient lands appeared below, and formed a huge arena, with a radius of 10,000 miles. Fight! Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile as he looked at his surroundings. He was not afraid of a fight. Sure enough, a black figure condensed on top of the huge black arena. He was pitch black, and his eyes emitted a cold light. There seemed to be a pair of black wings growing on his back. Humph! The black figure snorted. The wings on his back flapped, and he turned into an afterimage that charged toward Lin Xian. He arrived in front of Lin Xian in an instant. Then he clenched his hands, and a black spear quickly appeared. With a shake of his hands, the black spear turned into a black dragon that swept toward Lin Xian. Boom! Lin Xian's expression was solemn. Then, he waved his hand and quickly struck out with the frost palm. Instantly, a palm that flickered with blue light, and carried with it wind and frost slapped forward. Boom boom boom. There was a shocking collision, and then Lin Xian and the black figure fought fiercely. The two of them fought fiercely, but at this moment Lin Xian frowned. This was because he had the God's eye of heaven, and his powerful soul power. It could be said that his perception surpassed ordinary almighties. At this moment, he could sense that there seemed to be a pair of eyes watching him. This feeling made his heart beat wildly. So he decided to conserve his strength, and not use the power of the dragon sword soul. Instead, he only used the power of the sea god's ice to fight. Therefore, after 200 moves, Lin Xian was stabbed by the other party's spear. However, he was not injured. The black spear had passed through his body, and it was very illusory. Then, the black figure turned into a cloud of thick fog, and disappeared into the sky. 200 moves, huh? It's beyond my expectations, but it's still not ridiculously strong. The black-haired youth 7-star muttered to himself. At the same time, in another mysterious palace, the golden figure's eyes flickered. However, he did not say anything. The second stage was passed just like that. The third stage was even simpler. It was a test of bloodline power. However, Lin Xian did not have any bloodline power, so this test was extremely ordinary. This made the black-haired youth breathe a sigh of relief. Although the other party's performance in the first stage was very valiant, the third stage was truly too ordinary. He did not have any bloodline power at all. He was simply an ordinary person. One had to know that 7-star also had a type of bloodline power. Hence, 7-star's lips curled up into a smile. On the other side, Lin Xian's figure gradually faded as he exited the test and entered the palace. Congratulations, little junior brother. You've successfully passed. When Lin Xian came out, the tense and cold expression on 7-star's face completely disappeared. Chapter 1997. Little junior brother, come with me. I'll bring you to your residence. 7-star waved his sleeve and opened the palace's doors. Dazzling sunlight spilled in and illuminated the surroundings. Then he stepped into the air barefoot and walked into the distance. Lin Xian followed beside him. The two of them flew over countless mountain peaks and arrived at a verdant valley. There were many palaces and pavilions inside, and there were also array formations flickering in the surroundings. Little junior brother, you'll live in that valley. 7-star chuckled as he rapidly descended. Lin Xian nodded and followed him. The valley below was very ethereal and quiet, very suitable for Lin Xian's current residence. 7-star took out some clothes, some tokens, and other items. He then said, as the Peak Master's disciple, your status is equivalent to an elder, so you can order around those ordinary disciples. As your cultivation increases, and you break through to the Almighty Realm, your authority will increase. You'll naturally understand these things once you're familiar with this place. After explaining a few more matters, 7-star left. Lin Xian placed these items to the side. He didn't plan on staying here for long, so he didn't pay too much attention to these matters. In the following days, Lin Xian was peaceful. That Peak Master seemed to be in seclusion and didn't summon him. 7-star and Qinlan also didn't look for him. They seemed to have forgotten about Lin Xian. Lin Xian didn't care about this at all. He quietly cultivated and increased his strength on a daily basis. That night, he was going to do some scouting. Thus, he concealed his aura and transformed into a wisp of nothingness, disappearing from the valley. Then, he came to an uninhabited mountain peak and used his heavenly secret divine eyes to look down. Golden Tao patterns surfaced in his golden eyes. They were extremely mysterious, as if they were the eyes of a god overlooking the mortal world. Under Lin Xian's Tianji god eyes, the locations of the experts were all revealed. This was because their qi and blood were like dragons under the heavenly secret divine eyes. In the distance, 7 beams of light circled around. It was like a celestial realm, and it was even more resplendent. Lin Xian knew that this was the core area of the prince's mansion. Looking at that place, Lin Fan's body swayed as he executed Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps and flew towards that place at high speed. Not long after, he arrived nearby. When he got closer, he discovered that the 7 balls of light were similar to dragon balls. They revolved around him, forming a light curtain. Only after entering the palace would one be able to reach the core area of the prince's mansion. But thinking about it, he would definitely attract the attention of those people if he went in. Therefore Lin Xian sighed and left. It was impossible to sneak in. It seemed that they could only enter the core area of the prince's mansion through normal means. Lin Xian decided to find an opportunity to ask around and see if there was any way to quickly enter this place. On the other side, a mysterious figure also appeared in the valley where Lin Xian lived. That figure was like a ghost. It was very strange. Like lightning, it kept shuttling back and forth in the valley. But soon he frowned, and a trace of doubt appeared in his long and narrow eyes. There's actually no one. The next moment, the black fog on his face dispersed, revealing a chiseled face. It was second senior brother 7-star. He wasn't here to assassinate, but he wanted to check if Lin Xian had any other secrets. However, what surprised him was that there was actually no one in the valley. He's just a guy who just arrived. Where can he go? 7-star frowned and then snorted. This guy is indeed very strange. After pondering for a moment, 7-star disappeared from the valley. Whoosh! Not long after, Lin Xian returned to the valley. But as soon as he entered, the dark red divine dragon sent a voice transmission. Boy, my array has been tampered with. Someone's here. Lin Xian also frowned and was very vigilant. The next moment, his soul power covered the entire valley and discovered that there was no one inside. Presumably they had left. It seemed that this Jin Jianfeng wasn't too peaceful either. Lin Xian sneered. No matter who came today, he wouldn't let them have an easy time since they dared to target him. After 2 days, the valley regained its peace. On this day, several red-crowned cranes flew across the sky. There's actually someone below. Several handsome young men stood on the red-crowned cranes and exclaimed as they looked down at the valley. What? There's someone. Don't joke around. This is Yinyang Valley. How can someone dare to live here? Aren't they afraid of death? Another person sneered. There's really someone. There's an array fluctuation and the aura of spirit power below. Let's go down and see who has the guts to live in Yinyang Valley. They immediately rode their red-crowned cranes and rushed down. That fellow below, hurry up and come out. A cold shout was heard and turned into rolling thunder that rushed down. Below, in the valley, Lin Xian, who was cultivating, opened his eyes and frowned. The next moment he swayed his body and appeared in the sky. He looked at the red-crowned cranes in front of him, and the 3 or 4 young men standing on them. Lin Xian frowned immediately. Who are you? Oh my, you don't even know who we are. Seems like you're new here? Lad, are you a new disciple of Jin Jianfeng? You're too reckless. How dare you live in such a place? I thought you were some powerful figure. I didn't expect you to be a 6-star beginner challenger. You're simply courting death by letting such a person live here. What did you say? Lin Xian frowned. He couldn't understand what these guys were talking about. What's wrong with this valley? I've lived here for a few days and didn't notice anything unusual. Forget it if you don't understand. We don't have any other intentions. We just want to see who's so daring. Now that you've seen it, we'll take our leave. The few young men sneered and rode their red-crowned cranes away quickly. Lin Xian's eyes flickered as he watched them leave. Although he didn't know what they were talking about, he knew that there was something wrong with this valley. Although he hadn't discovered the problem yet, these people's behavior shouldn't be fake. If there was something wrong with this valley, why did they let him stay here? Wait, this valley was arranged by 7-star. Could it be that there's something wrong with 7-star? Lin Xian sneered when he recalled that someone had secretly come to the valley before. Could it be that 7-star was a smiling tiger with a knife hidden behind his smile? Lin Xian's eyes turned cold at the thought of this. Chapter 1998. However, he still decided to stay here for the time being, because he wanted to see what was so special about this valley. It was actually so surprising. In the next few days, there was nothing unusual. But on this day, a full moon hung in the sky like a silver plate, illuminating the entire land. Lin Xian was still cultivating, but at this moment, he suddenly felt something unusual. So in the next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, because he discovered that all the vitality in the entire valley seemed to be rapidly disappearing. Instead, it was replaced by a cold and incomparably dark aura of death. Boom, boom, boom. Streams of death aura appeared, transforming into ghostly hands that swept towards Lin Xian. Not only that, but headless beasts and powerhouses that had been pierced appeared around him, floating non-stop. A series of terrifying afterimages appeared beside him, as if they were ferocious ghosts, howling as they pounced towards him. Get lost! Xian roared angrily, and the dragon sword domain instantly appeared, enveloping him. Then tens of thousands of sword chi slashed in all directions, sending all of these phantoms flying. At the same time, all of the surrounding death aura was destroyed. However, it was useless. More death aura and phantoms came, wrapping around Lin Xian without any regard for their lives. As for Lin Xian, the great dragon sword soul in his body surged, and the dragon sword domain emitted light. Then, his entire body soared into the sky, transforming into a sharp ray of light. He broke through the endless death aura and left the valley. It was too dangerous. This death aura was very terrifying. Even if a mighty figure was entangled, they would probably be killed. Lin Xian's face was extremely gloomy. Now he finally knew why those young men sneered a few days ago. There was indeed something wrong with this valley. In the sky, looking at the pitch-black valley below, Lin Xian's face was extremely gloomy. He had been schemed against, but why? Could it be that he had revealed some flaws? That shouldn't be the case. This was Zhongzhou. No one knew who he was. And those people from the eastern wasteland wouldn't have chased him here. It wasn't his former enemy, and he didn't show the slightest interest in the nest of 10,000 dragons. In other words, it was a new enemy. But who was it? Su Chen thought about it and realized that only second senior brother, 7 Star, was the most suspicious. After some judgment, Lin Xian knew that the person who plotted against him was very likely that second senior brother 7 Star. When he thought of this, his expression immediately turned cold. He had no enmity with the other party, but the other party actually plotted against him? This caused Lin Xian to be filled with killing intent. However, now was not the time to make a move. However, Lin Xian decided that as long as he had the chance, he would definitely kill the other party. Looking at the black valley below, the aura of death permeated the air. Lin Xian knew that he could no longer stay in this place. Therefore, with the sway of his body, he landed in a nearby valley. Then, he flicked out a few strands of sword chi with his finger and opened up a cave abode. Then, he set up a formation and went into rest. The next day, when the sun rose, the aura of death in the secluded valley disappeared, and peace was restored. In the sky, 2 rays of light flew over. They quickly came to the vicinity of the valley and scanned the area. Suddenly, they fixed their eyes on a mountain peak and sneered. "Over there, let's go." After the 2 rays of light disappeared, they were 2 young men. Their expressions were cold and arrogant as they quickly arrived in front of a mountain peak. Then, one of them shouted coldly and struck out with his palm. Boom! The spirit chi in the sky gathered and formed a huge palm that covered an area of 100 kilometers. It slammed down fiercely. Boom! If the palm landed, it would definitely flatten the mountain peak. However, when the light palm landed in midair, rays of light suddenly lit up below. Then a formation was formed and blocked the shocking palm. Seeing this scene, the 2 young men above frowned. The young man in red who attacked sneered. In the next moment he shouted coldly, "Who is it? Get out here." There was a cave abode on the mountain peak below that was opened up by Lin Xian. In the cave, Lin Xian frowned and slowly opened his eyes. He could naturally sense the situation outside, and his face immediately darkened. When he heard the other party's arrogant voice, his body flashed and instantly disappeared from the cave. In the next moment, he appeared in the air opposite the 2 young men. "Who are you? How dare you disturb my rest?" Lin Xian asked coldly. He was still in a very bad mood after being ambushed yesterday. He hadn't expected that someone would come looking for trouble the next day at daybreak. Did they really think he was easy to bully? "Who are you, kid? How dare you open up a cave abode here?" However, the young man in red asked coldly. The young man in blue also said, "We're not disturbing your rest, we're enforcing the law." "What, enforcing the law?" Lin Xian furrowed his brows when he saw their arrogant and cold attitudes. "What, can't I open up a cave abode? You don't have the right to open one." The young man in red sneered. "Every inch of land here belongs to Valurium Manor. Only Valurium Manor's people can open up a cave abode. Everyone else can only live here." "Even Jin Jianfeng's elders can't?" Lin Xian asked again. "Of course not. That's why you've broken the rules. Come back with us obediently." Lin Xian's face darkened when he heard this. In the next moment, he waved his sleeves and sent countless boulders downwards. The cave abode quickly disappeared. The formation around it turned into rays of light and disappeared into Lin Xian's sleeves. Lin Xian said in a low voice, "Is this enough?" "Humph. Do you think you'll be fine after filling up the cave abode? You've already opened up a cave abode. Of course you've broken the rules. We're going to take you back to the law enforcement hall for punishment. Come back with us obediently, kid. Otherwise, you'll suffer a terrible fate." The 2 men sneered. The young man in red didn't say anything else. He reached out and grabbed at the space in front of him. An enormous palm of light immediately covered the sky and enveloped Lin Xian. Humph. Lin Xian was infuriated as well. These people were unreasonable and wanted to capture him by force. Moreover, They'd come here so early in the morning. It was obviously premeditated. After all, there were hundreds of thousands of people in Jinjianfeng. There were countless mountains and lands. Who knew where a newly opened cave abode would be? But these two people had been able to find it so precisely. And when the aura of death had just disappeared from the valley, it was obvious that this was a meticulous plan. Their goal was to capture him. The cold light in Lin Xian's eyes grew even colder when he thought of this. In the next moment he waved his hand. A frosty aura filled the air and froze the enormous palm of light in an instant. You dare defy us, kid? Chapter 1999. Kid, it looks like you don't know what's good for you. No one dares to stop us enforcers from doing our job. Even the elders have to follow us back obediently. How dare you resist? You're dead meat. Dead meat? Lin Xian sneered. Is that so? I don't think so. It's easy if you want to take me back. Just do it and I'll go back with you. If you can't do it, you two can get the hell out of here. At the end of his words, Lin Xian's body glowed with a sharp light. It transformed into countless rays of sword light that swept in all directions. You're courting death. The blue-clothed youth was furious. He attacked as well. The blue-clothed youth was also a frost cultivator. Thus, he transformed into a giant ice cage that enveloped Lin Xian. All of a sudden, countless pieces of ice appeared around Lin Xian, making cracking sounds as they formed a huge cage, trapping him within. Looking at the ice cage around him, Lin Xian snorted coldly and punched out. Boom! The terrifying fist transformed into a black dragon. It swept out and shattered the ice cage into pieces. Not only that, Lin Xian swung his fist and charged forward. You're courting death. How dare you attack us? Are you tired of living? The two youths were enraged when they saw this scene. The blue-clothed youth was especially furious. He hadn't expected his opponent to break out of his cage so easily. Not only that, his opponent had even attacked him. The two youths were members of the Valurium Palace's enforcers. Moreover, they were both peak 6-star cultivators. Their opponent was only an early 6-star cultivator. How dare he attack them? What a fool! However, as soon as they finished yelling, the black fist came crashing down. The blue-clothed youth stretched out his hand and gathered the power of frost in the air. It formed an ice shield in front of him to defend himself. Crack! Boom! However, it was useless. The giant ice shield shattered into pieces in an instant. Not only that, the blue-clothed youth was also hit. He was sent flying, spitting out blood. Damn it! How is this possible? How can he be so powerful? The blue-clothed young man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his face became extremely ugly. That punch just now had shattered half of the bones in his body. This made him extremely terrified. He had no choice but to take out a large number of spirit medicines from his ring of holding and quickly swallow them. At the same time, he circulated his cultivation method to heal his injuries. Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'm from the law enforcement hall. Kneel down and accept your death. On the other side, the red-clothed youth was enraged when he saw this. Clang! He drew the red sword from his waist and slashed forward. The red longsword expanded in the wind, transforming into a gigantic flaming sword that was over 1,000 feet long. As the sword slashed down, the air waves surged to the sky. Boom! Boom! Faced with such a terrifying flaming greatsword, Lin Xian unleashed his black fist and attacked wildly. In the end, the huge flaming sword was shattered into pieces. How is this possible? The red-clothed youth was extremely shocked. He held the broken red sword in his hand, and his arm was numb. The spiritual power in his body could not circulate smoothly. He was simply too shocked. Who exactly is this person? How can he be so powerful? Isn't he just a beginner 6-star challenger? The two youths looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. In the next moment, their scalps went numb, and they turned around to flee. Trying to escape? Lin Xian sneered. How could he let these two go? He stretched out his hands, and 2 streams of sword chi turned into long dragons that rushed in all directions, trapping the 2 youths and pulling them to his side. Sensing the fierce aura, the 2 youths' faces turned extremely pale. What are you trying to do? I'm warning you, we're from the law enforcement hall. If you dare to touch us, you're dead meat. Even if you're the Peak Master's disciple, you'll still be finished if you offend the law enforcement hall. The two youths roared crazily and struggled with all their might. You actually know my identity? Lin Xian was shocked. He originally thought that the two youths did not know his identity, so they attacked him. However, it seemed that this was not the case. The two youths actually knew that he was the Peak Master's disciple and dared to attack him. It seemed that they had something to rely on. At the thought of this, Lin Xian's face darkened. He asked coldly, "Who sent you to deal with me? Also, what's going on in this valley? What secrets does it contain? Don't even think about it. Although you caught us, don't think that you'll get any information from us." The two youths snorted coldly. Although their faces were pale, their eyes were filled with malice. Not going to talk. Lin Xian sneered, reached out his hand and grabbed the other party's head. Suddenly, a terrifying icy aura poured into the other party's body. The red-clothed youth screamed crazily. The icy aura around his body surged, and a thick layer of frost formed on his body. Cold, it was really too cold. It felt as if his soul was about to be frozen. Are you going to talk? Lin Xian snorted coldly. At this moment, the blue-clothed youth gritted his teeth. Attack me if you dare. He was also one of the Ice Five, so he was confident that he could resist the ice. However, Lin Xian sneered. Alright, since you asked for it, I'll fulfill your wish. As he said that, his left hand pressed on the blue-clothed youth's head. In the next moment, endless black flames surged out and enveloped the blue-clothed youth. Flames? How is this possible? You're not an ice-type warrior. How can you have flames? The youth screamed crazily. He felt as if his entire body was about to be ignited, and even his soul was about to be burned into nothingness. Damn it! You're an ice-type and fire-type king. He was really scared because he did not expect the other party's flames to be so powerful. His icy aura was completely useless. Can you tell me now? Seeing the two youths on the verge of death, Lin Xian withdrew his hand. The two youths were terrified. They looked at Lin Xian, their bodies trembling. They did not dare to be arrogant anymore. Instead, they quickly said, "It's your second senior brother, 7-star. He sent us." It really was him. Hearing this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. His guess was right. It was indeed the second senior brother, 7-star. Why is he targeting me? Also, what's the matter with the valley below? Lin Xian continued to ask. The valley below is called the Yinyang Valley. Usually there's nothing there, but every time there's a full moon, endless death aura will surge out, turning it into a death valley. At that time, even mighty figures would not dare to enter. The red-clothed youth said. As for why your second senior brother wants to kill you, I think it's because he's jealous of you. After all, having one more person would threaten his future inheritance. Chapter 2000. Fear. What's going on? Lin Xian was puzzled. He did not display his strength in front of the 7-star. Why would the other party be afraid of him? One had to know that he was only a 6-star king on the surface, while the 7-star king was an almighty. It was a joke for an almighty to be afraid of a 6-star king. It said that you're very similar to that person from 300 years ago. At this moment, the blue-clothed young man said weakly. The person from 300 years ago? What's going on? Tell me clearly. Actually, the Peak Master of Jin Jianfeng has 3 disciples, not 2. There was one before you, but he betrayed us. Betrayed us? Where did he go? Why did he betray us? I don't know why, but that person is very powerful. He was able to suppress senior sister Qin Lan at such a young age. The 7-star second senior brother was no match for him. That person lived in the Yinyang Valley back then. Where is he now? Lin Xian asked. He did not expect the Peak Master of the Golden Sword Peak to have a disciple. That person left long ago. It said that he joined the Yinyang sect. He even became an elder of the Yinyang Horn. Joined the Yinyang sect? Lin Xian was shocked. If he remembered correctly, the Yinyang sect should be a powerful sect in Middle Ground. It was very ancient and powerful, similar to the sacred grounds in the eastern wilderness. He did not expect Jin Jianfeng to have such a thing. But what did it have to do with him? Why was he similar to the person who joined the Yin-Yang sect? What was the similarity between the two of them? Lin Xian could not figure it out. The two young men did not know either. They looked at Lin Xian and asked in a trembling voice, can you let us go now? Let you go? Sure, but since you dared to provoke me, I'll cut off one of your arms as a warning. Lin Xian's eyes turned into sharp sword qi and slashed at the two of them. Immediately, one of their arms was cut off. Ah! The two of them screamed and rolled in the air. Their blood dyed their clothes and the sky red. Get lost! If you dare to provoke me again, I'll kill all of you. With that, Lin Xian waved his sleeve and sent the two of them flying. The next moment, he turned into a bolt of lightning and flew down to the valley below. The Yin-Yang Valley had returned to normal. Not only that, but there were also a few strange purple trees in the valley. Their branches were like long dragons, and they were abnormally dark and thunderous. God knows how long they had existed. At that moment, several black and white fruits were growing on the purple tree. What's that? Of the of. Could it be related to the death aura from last night? It is. However, right at this moment, a delicate shout came from behind. Then, a figure streaked across the sky like a bolt of red lightning, heading straight for Lin Xian. A sharp aura spread out and turned into a red saber light that slashed down fiercely. The saber light soared into the sky. Before it landed, cracks appeared in the sky. Even Lin Xian's clothes fluttered in the wind. Lin Xian frowned and suddenly turned around. He realized that the red saber light was coming for him. He immediately snorted coldly. In the next moment, he clapped his hands and faced the attack. Boom! A blue ice ball appeared in his palm. Then it collided with the red saber light and made a clanging sound. The void cracked, and the red saber light was completely frozen. The figure was also knocked back. The light disappeared, and then a figure appeared. It was a woman with a beautiful face. However, there was an unknown anger in her beautiful eyes. She stared at Lin Xian. Who are you? How dare you stop me? Get lost. The Yin-Yang fruit is not for you. The woman shouted coldly. Yin-Yang fruit. Hearing that, Lin Xian frowned. Could it be that the black and white fruit was called the Yin-Yang fruit? The valley was called the Yin-Yang Valley. And it was indeed mysterious that the Yin-Yang fruit could be produced here. However, what was the use of the fruit? Lin Xian did not know. However, he thought that it should be a treasure. Otherwise, the woman in red would not be so angry. I don't care about the Yin-Yang fruit. From now on, this valley is mine. Therefore, the things inside are naturally mine as well. Who are you? Get lost. Lin Xian looked at her and said coldly. What? This valley is yours? The woman in red was stunned when she heard that. Soon she sneered. Are you kidding me? No one lives in the Yin-Yang Valley. It has been ownerless for 300 years. Who are you, kid? Get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing you. Lin Xian snorted. No one has lived in this valley for 300 years. But from today onward, this valley is mine. You're courting death. The woman in red was furious when she heard Lin Xian's arrogant and domineering words. In the next moment, she held a long saber in her hand. The sharp saber light soared into the sky and slashed down at Lin Xian. At the same time, the woman in red's body swayed and disappeared on the spot. Whoosh! Lin Xian flicked his fingers. Sword qi surged out and resisted the sharp saber light. However, at this moment, the space beside him split open. The woman in red suddenly appeared and slashed at Lin Xian with her long saber. Clang! Lin Xian's arm was imbued with boundless ice. He slapped the blade with his palm, sending the blade flying. In the next moment, he threw a punch at the woman in red. A violent aura appeared between heaven and earth. Black dragon tattoos wrapped around his fist and turned into a black dragon that charged forward. The world lost its color. It was as if only the black dragon was left roaring. When the woman saw this, her body stiffened and the spiritual power in her body froze. Her pretty face became extremely pale. She did not expect this young man, who was only at the beginning of the 6-star level, to have such a powerful fist technique. This fist technique made her body tremble. She wanted to run away, but she found that her surroundings were frozen by endless ice. She had no way out. Therefore, she could only grit her teeth and resist with all her might. A red light appeared. The woman waved her hand, and a set of bright red armor covered her body. Not only that, her dainty jade-like hands were rapidly forming hand seals. She gathered in front of her and formed a light screen to resist the black fist. Boom, boom, boom. Everything seemed to be in vain. The red light screen became fragile under the black fist. Chapter 2001. After that, the black fist ruthlessly smashed into the red-clothed woman's armor. Immediately, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Ah! The woman screamed in agony as she flew backwards, turning into a streak of red light. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Her body smashed into a mountain peak, causing it to break apart. Junior sister. At this moment, a furious roar came from afar. Soon after, several rainbows appeared in the sky and streaked across the sky like lightning. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The rainbows danced in the air, turning into 3 figures. They came to the woman's side and helped her up. There were 2 men and 1 woman. One of them was a middle-aged man, and the other 2 were a young man and woman. The young woman quickly took out a pill and fed it to the woman in red. The other 2 glared at Lin Xian furiously. Kid, how dare you hurt my junior sister? I'll kill you. The young man drew his long sword from his waist. The middle-aged man's expression darkened. Who are you? He asked coldly. Get over here and kneel for your death. These people were furious. They'd come to Yinyang Valley to pick the Yinyang fruit. However, they didn't expect that someone would come before them and even injure their junior sister. They wouldn't let this go. Who am I? Lin Xian sneered. And who are you? This is where I live. Aren't you afraid of being punished by my residents for causing trouble for no reason? He knew that those who could come here were all from Valurium Palace. These people were strong, but had never seen them before. Presumably, it was not from the Golden Sword Peak. Perhaps it was from the other peaks. It was hard to say, but no matter who they were, Lin Xian wouldn't let them enter Yinyang Valley and cause trouble. What? Your territory? The 3 newcomers were stunned when they heard this. The young man snorted. Are you kidding? Yinyang Valley is ownerless. Since when did it become your territory? Kid, don't lie. The young woman snorted as well. The middle-aged man's expression darkened. Who are you, kid? You don't look familiar. Jin Jianfeng is new. You dare to be arrogant in front of us? And who are you? Lin Xian asked. Even we don't know. Kid, listen carefully. We are the disciples of Tai Yanfeng's 3rd elder. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and get over here to die. Otherwise, if we catch you, we'll definitely let you know the feeling of living a life worse than death. The 3 of them had ice-cold expressions. Apart from the injured woman, the middle-aged man among the 3 of them was at the Perfection 6 stars realm. As for the other 2, they were both peak 6 stars. When the 3 of them joined forces, it could be said that they were very powerful. Furthermore, in their opinion, the other party was only an elementary 6-star cultivator. Such a person was not even worth mentioning in their eyes. They felt that their junior sister's injury must have been caused by carelessness. How could an early-stage 6-star King Realm cultivator possibly injure them? Brat, since you don't want to die obediently, then I can only make a move. The young man stood up. Ka. A suit of armor appeared around his body, enveloping his entire body. Then, he unsheathed the sword at his waist. Wung. Terrifying sword aura surged, piercing through the clouds and shining brightly. In the end, the long sword slashed down. Instantly, a sword aura that was almost 1,000 feet long descended rapidly from the sky. Kid, go to hell. The young man sneered. Humph. Lin Xian snorted coldly. That's not how you use your sword. That's not how you use your swordsmanship. At the next moment, he slapped his palm toward the sky and collided with the sword aura. Instantly, there was a huge explosion in the sky. The terrifying sword aura that was 1,000 feet long was directly shattered. He can actually block my attack. This kid is much more powerful than he looks on the surface. The young man frowned. The middle-aged man also said, Junior brother, be careful. This kid is very strange. He might be able to fight someone of a higher level. Don't worry, senior brother. So what if he can fight someone of a higher level? In front of me, it's still not enough. The young man sneered and was prepared to attack again. However, Lin Xian stretched out his palm. In the center of his palm, a black aura spun rapidly, forming a powerful suction force that shrouded the young man. How can this be? The young man was sucked forward by the powerful suction force. He could not control himself at all. He roared crazily, trying to break the suction force, but he could not do it at all. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the young man arrived in front of Lin Xian. Then his neck was grabbed by the other party. His entire body was pressed into the void, unable to move at all. You want me to kneel and wait for my death? Kneel and wait for your death first. Lin Xian kicked out and broke the other party's legs. Then, the other party knelt in the air and screamed crazily. Damn it! How can he be so powerful? The young man was in so much pain that his eyes were filled with fear. That was because he could not believe that the other party was too powerful. Senior brother, save me. Hurry up and save me. He did not dare to be arrogant anymore, and quickly asked the middle-aged man for help. That was because he could not fight against the other party alone. Perhaps only his senior brother could fight against the other party. Kid, you're courting death. Let go of my junior brother. The middle-aged man's face turned gloomy when he saw that. In the next moment, his aura exploded like a mountain that one could only look up to. You're too arrogant. How dare you offend our Iron Cloud Peak? You should know that our Iron Cloud Peak is more powerful than your Golden Sword Peak. If you know what's good for you, let go of my junior brother and hand over the yin yang fruit. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. You talk too much. Come and save your junior brother yourself if you can. With that, Lin Xian waved his hand and threw the young man aside. Then he used the ice cage to control the other party. Kid, since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. In the next moment, the middle-aged man stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light appeared in his right hand. Then a golden spear slowly took shape. Boom boom. The spear pierced out like a golden lightning bolt, shaking the entire sky. The terrifying golden spear pierced through the void and viciously stabbed towards Lin Xian. Boom boom boom. The void was pierced full of holes in an instant. The middle-aged man's strength was several times stronger than the young man's. When he attacked, the wind and clouds changed. Complete 6-star Great Circle? Is that what gives you the right to be so arrogant? Lin Xian sneered. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the golden spear. What an idiot. How dare you grab senior brother's golden spear? In the distance, the two women sneered when they saw that. Chapter 2002. When he said that, the golden spear shone even more brightly. Endless light flickered in all directions. Golden thunder fell from the sky, causing the entire sky to tremble. Buzz! However, the spear stopped in the next moment. The terrifying scene around them also froze in an instant. Then, the lightning and golden light that filled the sky disappeared without a trace. A strong and powerful hand grabbed the golden spearhead. That hand belonged to Lin Xian. He seemed to have grabbed the poisonous snake's weak spot and subdued the golden spear in an instant. Damn it! How is that possible? He can grab my weapon. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and his face was full of disbelief. In the next moment, he roared crazily and waved his hands, trying to pull the spear out. The great perfection of 6 stars? That's all there is to it. You don't have the ability to be arrogant in front of me. Lin Xian's voice was cold. He exerted strength in his arms and immediately waved the spear. As for the middle-aged man who was holding the spear, he was also lifted up into the air, dancing non-stop in the air. Boom! Lin Xian waved the spear and smashed it hard on the ground. Immediately, the middle-aged man's body fell to the ground, creating a deep pit. Cracks spread in all directions, and it was extremely terrifying. Ah, I'm going to kill you. The middle-aged man got up from the ground and roared crazily. Endless sacred light erupted from his body. The terrifying aura shattered the void. Boom! However, at that moment, a foot stepped on his head. Immediately, his body that had just gotten up was stepped back down again. Not only that, but his head was also stepped on into the soil. You still want to fight back? Do you have the ability to? Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. The young man who was trapped, and the two women in the distance were stunned when they saw that scene. They did not expect their powerful senior brother to have his head stepped on, and unable to resist at all. It was really hard for them to believe. Now, do you still dare to have any ideas about the yin yang fruit? Lin Xian asked coldly. Hearing that, their bodies trembled, and deep fear appeared in their eyes. What kind of joke was that? They would never dare to have any ideas about the yin yang fruit, even if they were beaten to death. That was because the young man before him was simply too powerful. Moreover, it was very strange. He was clearly only at the early stage of a 6-star martial artist. But his combat strength was so strong that even a 6-star martial artist at the consummation stage was no match for him. Could it be that the other party had already reached the almighty level? They were all terrified. No, I wouldn't dare. The middle-aged man struggled to open his mouth and said, We were blind and didn't know that the Yin-Yang Valley was still young master's territory. Please forgive us, young master. I hope young master won't blame us. The other three also hurriedly apologized as their bodies began to tremble. Tell me, what is the use of the yin-yang fruit? The yin-yang fruit will bear fruit once a month. However, there are very few of them each time, only 3 to 5. This yin-yang fruit is very magical. It can help you concentrate and train your qi. After consuming it, the soul power and spiritual energy in the body will be refined. If taken over a long period of time, it can even purify one's soul and improve one's physique. It might even give birth to bloodline power. The middle-aged man didn't dare to hold anything back. He explained all the uses of the yin-yang fruit. When Lin Xian heard this, he was greatly surprised. The yin-yang fruit was special. It could only be found in the yin-yang valley. No other place would have it. Lin Xian hadn't known before, but now it seemed that the yin-yang fruit was truly a treasure. Not only could it improve a cultivator's physique, but it could also strengthen one's soul. However, he was very puzzled. Why didn't Valerian Palace want such a good thing? Why did they leave it here for others to fight over? But soon he understood. There were simply too few of the yin-yang fruit. Although it could improve one's physique, and even strengthen one's soul, it needed to be consumed over a long period of time. If 3 to 5 of them were taken each time, who knew how long it would take to gather enough yin-yang fruit? That was why Valerian Palace didn't monopolize the yin-yang fruit. Instead, they let the other 5 peaks benefit. In the past, the 5 great winds would fight over the yin-yang fruit. At the very least, Jin Jianfeng and Tai Yanfeng's men would fight. However, because of Lin Xian's arrival this time, Big Dipper and Qin Lan didn't come. However, Tai Yanfeng's men had come. They fought Lin Xian, but the result was a crushing defeat. Alright, get out of here. Also, Yin-Yang Valley is my territory from now on. Don't come here again. Otherwise, I'll break your legs the next time I see you. Lin Xian removed his foot and sent the middle-aged man flying with a kick. In the next moment, he removed the cage of ice and snow. These people immediately fled and disappeared into the sky. The yin-yang fruit was a treasure. Lin Xian entered the valley and plucked 3 yin-yang fruits. He looked at them and saw that there were 2 more. In other words, there were only 5 yin-yang fruits at a time. Without hesitation, he took one and put it into his mouth. The yin-yang fruit was very miraculous. It melted in his mouth, turning into pure yin and yang qi that quickly entered Lin Xian's body. Lin Xian could feel that his physique was quickly absorbing the yin-yang qi. His soul seemed to have been tempered as well. Soon he opened his eyes. It seemed that there would only be obvious changes after consuming the yin-yang fruit for a long time. If he only ate 1 or 2, there would not be any obvious changes. It would only be a slow increase. However, this was already good enough. At least Lin Xian still needed to stay in Yin-Yang Valley for a while. He ate another one, and then divided the rest among the dark red divine dragon and the little white monkey. The news that Lin Xian owned Yin-Yang Valley quickly spread. The people from the 5 peaks were greatly shocked. That was because Yin-Yang Valley had been without an owner for 300 years. They did not expect to welcome a new owner this time. However, some people were not convinced. After all, Yin-Yang Valley could produce yin-yang fruits. Therefore, many people came to attack Yinyang Valley, but they were all beaten away by Lin Xian. Therefore, after a while, everyone knew that a ferocious person had come to live in Yinyang Valley. Even a great perfection 6-star cultivator was no match for him. For a time, no one dared to behave atrociously in Yinyang Valley. Lin Xian could be considered to have settled down in Yinyang Valley. On the other side, in Huihong's main hall, the black-haired man, 7-star, had a cold expression. All the Golden Sword Peak disciples thought that this 7-star was a good-natured second senior brother. However, they did not know that this 7-star was a person who hid a dagger behind a smile. At this moment, there was no one in the main hall except for 7-star, so he would not hide anymore. His chiseled face was incomparably cold. Damn fellow, he can actually dodge the death aura. How did he do it? To be honest, 7-star was very surprised, because even he could not resist the death aura in Yinyang Valley. However, the other party was safe and sound. Chapter 2003. Not only that, but the people from the Hall of Law Enforcement had also been sent running. Even a great perfection 6-star cultivator wasn't his match. This shocked 7-star even more. This was because even though Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the elementary 6-star level, his battle prowess was simply too terrifying. No one below the rank of great expert was his match. 7-star took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Then he began to organize his thoughts. According to the news from the manor, this kid could fight above his level. He could even fight the Mountain Razor General to a draw when his cultivation was suppressed. This meant that he had the strength of a quasi-great expert. But so what? He's just a quasi-great expert. He's not a true great expert. He's nothing compared to me. 7-star's lips curled into a cold smile. However, he didn't relax his frown. His master was in seclusion right now, so he hadn't attracted his master's attention. However, the manor will hold a great competition in 2 months. If he shines in the competition, his master and the manor will definitely take notice. What if his master takes a liking to him and imparts him with some real cultivation methods? With that guy's talent, it won't be long before he breaks through and becomes a great expert. At that time, I won't have any advantage. 7-star's eyes shone with a fierce light. Little junior brother, I won't let you shine in the competition in 2 months. Qin Lan is a proud and aloof woman. She probably won't make a move in secret. Moreover, no one in Golden Sword Peak's younger generation is his match. It seems that I should think about the other 4 peaks and see if I can instigate others to kill him in advance. Even if I can't kill him, I can at least severely injure him. However, the disciples of ordinary elders really aren't his match. Only the disciples of the 5 peak lords can. 7-star thought about it and realized that Lin Xian was truly a monster. No one below the rank of great expert was his match. This drove 7-star crazy. Kid, it seems that I still need to end you with my own hands. Lin Xian began to cultivate after no one disturbed him. However, he received some news during this time. Valurium Manor would hold a great competition in 2 months. This grand competition was Valurium Palace's test for the 5 peaks. Anyone who performed outstandingly in this grand competition would be chosen by Valurium Manor and nurtured with all their might. It was even possible that he could enter the heart of Valurium Palace. Upon receiving this news, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the large competition in 2 months was his only chance. He had to enter the heart of Valurium Palace and use it as a springboard to enter the heart of the Tai dynasty. Only then could he obtain more information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. I remember that when I received the token, that disciple once said that this token would allow me to obtain some cultivation resources every month. Lin Xian recalled. Then he took out his token and flew off into the distance in a flash. In the distance, immortal mist was faintly discernible. A 7-story pagoda towered into the clouds. Lin Xian arrived at the bottom of the pagoda. Immediately, someone flew up and shouted coldly, "Who goes there?" "I'm Jin Jianfeng's 3rd disciple. I'm here to collect cultivation resources," Lin Xian said in a low voice and took out his token. The guards took the token and examined it carefully. Then, They respectfully handed it to Lin Xian and said, "Senior uncle, please." Lin Xian nodded and followed them into the 7-story pagoda. The interior was incomparably spacious. Runes flickered on the walls and floor. It was obvious that this pagoda was unusually sturdy. There was absolutely no need for anyone to cause trouble here. When they arrived at the 3rd floor, the disciple said, "Senior uncle, please enter. Hand over the token, and you'll receive the resources you need." The disciple waited on the side and didn't enter. Lin Xian nodded and pushed open the door alone. After he entered, the stone door behind him slowly closed with a rumbling sound. Although the door was closed, it wasn't dark inside. On the dark walls and ceiling above him were fist-sized luminous pearls that flickered with light. On the wall in front of him, there were many boxes with titles engraved on them. In front of the wall, there was a huge copper lamp with mysterious runes engraved on it. It was abnormally complicated and dazzling. It had an unfathomable aura. Lin Xian walked forward. However, at this moment, the huge copper lamp in front of him flickered. Then, at the mouth of the lamp, a cloud of green mist gushed out and quickly condensed into the appearance of a gigantic spirit. "Halt! Report your name," the spirit-gathering spirit said. His voice was like thunder, but it didn't spread out of the room. The runes in the entire room flickered and blocked all auras. "I'm Jin Jianfeng's 3rd disciple," Lin Xian said in a low voice. He didn't say his name. Moreover, the items here weren't collected according to one's name. Instead, they were collected according to their titles. For example, if Qin Lan came to collect, she would be Jin Jianfeng's eldest senior sister. If Jin Jianfeng came to collect, he would be Jin Jianfeng's 2nd senior brother. As for him, he was the 3rd disciple. With that, Lin Xian waved the token in his hand. That cyan Juling God phantom received the token, and then danced towards the back. The token flew out, and embedded itself in a box on the wall. Immediately, there was a clicking sound. "Jin Jianfeng's 3rd disciple. You haven't collected cultivation resources for 300 years. Are you going to take them all out at once?" "What?" Hearing this, Lin Xian was stunned. Originally, he had just arrived and thought that he could only take a month's worth of cultivation resources. However, he didn't expect that he could take all the resources for 300 years. This was really surprising. Suddenly, he remembered that the Gold Sword Peak's peak master seemed to have taken in a disciple before. However, he later left and joined the Yin-Yang sect. That person was probably the 3rd disciple at that time. He was now the 3rd disciple. Moreover, this place only collected resources based on their titles, not their names. Therefore, the things that the previous person hadn't collected for 300 years were all given to Lin Xian. Thinking of this, Lin Xian felt excited. Happiness came too suddenly. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Take them all out." He couldn't help it. He was really too excited. After hearing this, the spirit condensation god nodded. Then, he waved his arm, and a storage ring floated in the air. Then, it flew towards Lin Xian. "All the cultivation resources for the next 300 years are here. Take them." Lin Xian took the storage ring and probed it with his soul power. In the next moment, his pupils shrank. This was because there were 360,000 supreme-grade subdivine crystals neatly placed inside. Chapter 2004. Lin Xian knew very well how rare it was to have a nerve. It could only be cut out from those wondrous stones. Moreover, it was extremely rare. But now, he had obtained a resource similar to a divine crystal. How could he not be excited? In the next moment, he put away the storage ring, retrieved the token, and turned around to leave. What a pleasant surprise! With these 360,000 substandard divine crystals, Lin Xian believed that he could increase his cultivation again. After obtaining these abundant cultivation resources, Lin Xian immediately returned to the Yin-Yang Valley and prepared to cultivate in seclusion to increase his cultivation. However, he frowned when he returned to the valley. "Who is it? Show yourself, you sneaky bastard." Lin Xian snorted coldly. His voice was as sharp as a sword, bombarding the surroundings. "Hee hee brother, your soul power is quite sharp." Soft laughter sounded at this moment. Then, the void rippled and two figures appeared. Who are you? What are you hiding here for? Lin Xian looked ahead and asked coldly. There were two figures in front of him, a man and a woman. The man wore a blue robe and had a handsome face. The woman wore a black dress and an icy expression. I'm from Blue Haifeng. She's from Black Jade Peak. Blue Haifeng and Black Jade Peak were both part of the 5 Great Peaks. However, Lin Xian didn't know what they were here for. We're here for no reason. We just want to inform you of something. That is, brother, please give up on the competition in 2 months. What? Lin Xian was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect this to be their request. He sneered. Do you think it's possible for me to give up on the competition? The competition in 2 months was Lin Xian's opportunity to enter Valurium Palace's core. Even if that wasn't the case, Lin Xian wouldn't listen to them. He wasn't a lamb to be slaughtered. Why waste your breath on him? Just attack. The woman in black said coldly. Her expression was unusually cold. The blue-clothed young man smiled and said, Brother, we didn't intend to target you in this matter. It's just that someone doesn't want you to participate. Since you won't listen, then don't blame us for being rude. Impolite? How impolite? Lin Xian sneered. Both of them were 6-star great perfection cultivators. The man in blue in particular was even stronger. He was about to enter the realm of great experts. But even so, it wasn't enough. Lin Xian didn't take these two people. The two of them did not attack Lin Xian immediately. Instead, they took out 2 jade pendants and put them together. Immediately, a dazzling light bloomed, forming countless multicolored lights that rushed into the clouds. In the next moment, 18 large flags appeared in the sky and began to flutter rapidly. Every one of them was like a huge mountain, black and oppressive, carrying a heavy aura. We know you're powerful. You can even kill a 6-star great perfection cultivator. So we don't plan to attack you. We only need to trap you for a few months. After the competition, we'll let you out. Go. The woman in black snorted and waved her hand. The 18 swaying flags in the sky were quickly inserted into the ground below, surrounding the entire valley. Then the 18 flags formed an extremely mysterious formation cage that covered the entire Yin-Yang Valley. With the 18 iron blood flags, that kid won't be able to get out. Even a great expert can be trapped for a year or so, let alone him. That kid could have provoked anyone, but he provoked that smiling tiger. He's unlucky. Let's go. The two of them talked for a while. Then, they turned into a long rainbow and disappeared into the sky. The 18 flags below fell to the ground and formed a formation. Then they disappeared. Ordinary people couldn't see it at all. However, it formed a mysterious force that covered the entire valley. The people in the valley couldn't get out. Humph! Lin Xian stood in the valley and looked around. He snorted when he sensed the mysterious aura. Needless to say, it was the doing of second senior brother 7-star. It seemed that the other party had put in a lot of effort to suppress him. To think that he would even resort to a method like sealing the formation. However, how could a mere formation seal him? In the next moment, Lin Xian clapped his hands and blue frost turned into a huge ice palm that slammed forward. Boom boom boom. There was an intense collision and countless ripples appeared in the sky. However, this time, the ice palm didn't break through the void. Instead, it was shattered. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian was surprised. Buzz! In the next moment, he bent his fingers and flicked out a wisp of sword chi that surged forward. Then, it expanded in the wind and turned into a sword light that was 100 feet long. It slashed down from the sky. Clang! Airwaves rolled and the void cracked. However, it didn't break the formation formed by the 18 flags. Interesting. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect the other party to have such a mysterious formation. He wouldn't be able to break it in a short time. However, he wasn't worried because he had the dark red divine dragon. With the dark red divine dragons means, it wouldn't be a problem to break this kind of formation. Sure enough, when he summoned the ruffian dragon, the dark red divine dragon said, "Don't worry, kid, I can break it." That's good. Lin Xian smiled but then said, "Don't be too fast. If we break the formation now, they'll probably attack us again. Why don't I cultivate in seclusion while the formation is still here. We won't be disturbed. We just have to break the formation before the competition starts. Lin Xian smiled. He was originally worried that 7-star would attack him, but now he was trapped by the formation. He thought that the other party wouldn't cause trouble for him anymore. This made it convenient for him to cultivate in seclusion, other than the dark red divine dragon, reminding them during the full moon. The two of them could avoid death. Lin Xian had been cultivating in silence. He took out 360,000 supreme-grade substandard divine crystals, and used the dragon sword field to refine them. The energy of the supreme-grade substandard divine crystals was completely absorbed by the dragon sword field and transferred to Lin Xian's body. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. During this time, many newcomers were sent in and assigned to the 5 peaks. The people from the 5 peaks were also excited. It didn't matter if they were newcomers, or those who had arrived long ago. It didn't matter if they were ordinary disciples, elders' disciples, or even peak masters' disciples. At this moment, all of them were excited. This was because the competition of the Wang Mansion was coming. If anyone could stand out in the competition, the Wang Mansion would definitely take a fancy to them and nurture them with all their might. Chapter 2005. After all, the 5 peaks were only branches of the manor. The entire Valurium Manor was incomparably powerful. It wasn't inferior to some of the great sections. Everyone was accumulating strength and cultivating madly, preparing to display their prowess in the competition. Buzz! A 72-level cultivation pagoda suddenly opened, and an icy figure walked out. She was wearing a blue dress, and was standing on a blue greatsword. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were unusually cold. She was the eldest senior sister of Golden Sword Peak Qin Lan. Although Qin Lan looked like she was in her 20s, her true age was more than 300 years old. However, compared to those old monsters who were easily thousands of years old, she was still part of the younger generation. Therefore, she was naturally qualified to take part in the Prince's Mansion competition. The same was true for second senior brother 7-star. There were very few people like Lin Xian, who was only 24 or 25 years old, but possessed heaven-defying strength. Every one of them was a peerless genius. Only the holy sons and daughters, as well as the princes and princesses, could do so. Apart from them, the others were all youths who were a few hundred years old. They might be old in the eyes of the common world, but they were very young in the world of cultivation. With the arrival of the competition, not only were the 5 peaks excited, but the entire manor was bustling with activity. This competition wasn't just an internal affair of Valurium Manor. It also invited nearby experts, families, and other factions to spectate. It was a grand event. For one thing, Valurium Manor could show off the strength of its young disciples. Moreover, this was an opportunity for Valurium Palace to cooperate with the other great factions in the area. Therefore, Valurium Manor attached great importance to the competition. The disciples of the 5 peaks were all mobilized. Apart from registering for the competition, they were also receiving the various experts. The manor had limited manpower, and those who were stronger wouldn't do such a thing. It wasn't appropriate for the weak to be sent out to receive the strong. Therefore, the genius disciples, elders, and disciples of the 5 peaks were all mobilized. Senior Feng, please come in. Greetings, Master Skyfire. My master misses you very much. Brother Hong, you're early. Laughter rang out as Valurium Manor's disciples welcomed the various experts and geniuses. Among them, even 7-star and Qin Lan were sent out. Wang. In the sky, a rainbow streaked across. Then, the light dissipated and a child appeared. The child was not even half a meter tall, but he had a big head and a beard. His face was no different from a middle-aged man's. This strange scene caused the surrounding disciples to be slightly stunned. However, 7-star's eyelids were twitching wildly. He quickly walked up and said respectfully, "Greetings, Master He Tuesday." He didn't dare to be careless at all, because the short middle-aged man in front of him was extremely terrifying. Even though they were both almighties, the other party's strength far surpassed his. He had reached an unfathomable realm. Moreover, He had a bad temper because he was a natural dwarf. Unlike the dwarfs in the normal world, this was a race. Therefore, even if this middle-aged man cultivated to the level of a powerful being, he would still be short and couldn't change his size. However, his temper was extremely violent. If anyone dared to speak rudely to him, he would definitely torture them to death in an extremely cruel manner. Therefore, 7-Star didn't dare to be careless in front of such a person. Not only 7-Stars, but Qinlan also met a big shot. Clouds roiled in the sky as an old man slowly descended on a white cloud. The old man was tall and big, with a hooked nose and piercing eyes. However, his arms were missing. His empty sleeves fluttered in the wind. The demiurge crippled master. This was also an extremely terrifying almighty. Even with Qinlan's arrogant personality, he still forced a smile and took it seriously. What a beautiful child. I remember you. You should be one of Jin Jianfeng's people. The demiurge crippled master looked at Qinlan, his eyes quickly roaming over her body. Qinlan froze when she was enveloped by his gaze. Intense anger rose in her heart. However, she didn't dare show it on her face. She couldn't beat the person in front of her. Moreover, this was a critical moment. She couldn't make a move. Therefore, she welcomed the crippled old man with a smile and invited him inside. Qinlan and 7-Star weren't the only ones. Genius disciples from all directions welcomed the experts into Valurium Manor. This was a grand occasion. Congratulations came from all directions. Valurium Manor was currently open to all but the most central areas of the manor for these people to enjoy. There were also places to live. Mountains, pavilions, terraces, and towers sparkled with light. These were all places for people to live. Spirit beasts danced in the air around them. Mountains and rivers were places for people to enjoy. More and more people arrived. Finally, Valurium Manor welcomed the official start of the grand competition. The weather was clear and sunny. There were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. Valurium Manor was bathed in multicolored light. An enormous mountain peak floated in the sky. The magnificent sight was admired by tens of thousands of people. The mountain peak was enormous. However, it didn't have a peak. Someone had sliced it open in the middle with a single stroke of a sword, creating a vast expanse of flat land. There were exquisite palaces and pavilions on the flat land. There were even springs and waterfalls above. All kinds of spirit beasts ran about. This place was called the Immortals' Advent Terrace. It was the most important and noble place for the grand competition. It was also where King Valurium would appear. Apart from King Valurium, the most important people of Valurium Manor would also appear here. Apart from them, very few people who came to pay homage were qualified to come here. Anyone who could ascend to the Immortals' Advent Terrace was an earth-shattering figure. However, there weren't too many of them in total. There were no more than 100 people. There were also 5 floating mountains around the Immortals' Advent Terrace. They had also been sliced in the middle, revealing a vast expanse of flat land. These were 5 viewing platforms that were 1 level below the Immortals' Advent Terrace. They were 1 level below the Immortals' Advent Terrace. Those who could come to the 5 great beer temples were no ordinary people. After all, other than the 5 great spiritual altars, there were countless other viewing spots that were prepared for other people. Although Venerable Master Tiancan and the dwarf boy were feared by Qinlan and 7-Star, they couldn't ascend to the Immortals' Advent Terrace. They could only sit on these 5 platforms. Those people took their seats one by one. No one dared to disturb them, and no one dared to forcibly occupy a good place. It would be too humiliating to be beaten down in front of so many people. Chapter 2006. There weren't many people in the vicinity of Yinyang Valley, not even birds or beasts. No one dared to come here because of the presence of death. At this moment, Yinyang Valley was unusually calm. However, it did not take long for the void to start boiling. It was as though the void was boiling, making loud splashing sounds. An extremely handsome young man was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the valley. His hands were constantly changing mysterious seals. In the next moment he opened his eyes. Sword light dozens of meters long tore through the air. His aura suddenly erupted, rushing in all directions with the force of an avalanche. Thunder and wind began to howl in the valley. It was as if the end of the world was coming. Whoosh! A long howl turned into rolling thunderclouds. The young man stood up, his aura rising steadily. Finally, he rose from an early 6-star king to a mid-6-star king. At the same time, the 360,000 supreme-grade subdivine crystals behind the young man shattered and turned into ashes in an instant. This young man was Lin Xian. Lin Xian looked at the 360,000 supreme-rank subdivine crystals behind him. His lips curved into a smile. After 2 months of absorption, he had broken through to a mid-6-star king. His strength had also increased once again. In the next moment, he raised his head and looked into the distance. There was a dazzling light in the distance, as if an immortal palace had opened. It was about time for the competition to begin. He said, "Ruffian dragon, it's time. Let's do it." Haha, I've been ready for a long time. The dark red dragon had deciphered more than half of the 18 flags of iron and blood over the past 2 months. Only the last step remained. When he heard Lin Xian's command, he waved his claw. Several mysterious runes appeared and floated in the air. In the next moment, a crack appeared. "Let's go." Lin Xian's figure flashed, and he left the crack with the dark red divine dragon. He turned into a ray of sword light and flew towards the dazzling light in the distance. Valurium Palace was unusually lively at this moment. Voices and laughter could be heard from time to time. The Immortals' Advent platform at the center shone so brightly that one could only look up at it. The 5 spirit platforms around it were even more lively. On one of the golden spirit altars, there were many experts here, including Jin Jianfeng's eldest senior sister, Qin Lan, and second senior brother, Jin Jianfeng. Other than the 2 of them, the 9 elders of the Golden Sword Peak were also present. Other than that, there were also other experts who had come to congratulate him. Their eldest martial sister Qin Lan had an ice-cold personality. Thus, in this sort of situation, she would not agree too much. The younger generation was naturally left to second senior brother 7-star. As for the elders of the older generation, they were received by the great elder. At this moment, second senior brother 7-star stood up and smiled. "Seniors, fellow Taoists, 7-star salutes everyone." "Well said, well said." The older ones all laughed. As for those martial artists of the same age, they stood up one after another. The group of people drank. At this moment, a hurried sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Then, a sharp sword light pierced through the clouds and flew over quickly. The sword chi was sharp and very eye-catching. Therefore, everyone on the golden spiritual platform looked up at the sky at once. What a sharp sword chi! The elders and experts were all astonished, and the younger generation exclaimed in shock. Who would come at this time? Second senior brother 7-star's face darkened when he turned to look at the sword chi. He even spilled some of the wine in his hand, because he discovered that the sword chi was actually released by Lin Xian. Damn it, how is this possible? Wasn't that guy trapped by the 18 flags of iron blood? How could he come out? 7-star was extremely surprised because he had already sent people to use the 18 flags of iron blood to trap the other party. That kind of array formation was very terrifying. Even an almighty would not be able to come out without a year or so. But now, the other party actually came out. How did he do it? Could it be that someone helped him? But after thinking about it, 7-star realized that unless an almighty level array master made a move, no one could break it open. Even then, the commotion would be very big. With his means, he could quickly obtain news. However, he did not receive any news at all. This made him even more puzzled. Damn it, this brat's aura has become tyrannical again. What shocked 7-star even more was that the other party's cultivation seemed to have broken through and reached the mid-stage 6-star monarch realm. This made his expression very ugly. Off to the side, Qin Lan naturally noticed Lin Xian as well. However, her face was still cold and expressionless. Although she somewhat disliked this new junior brother of hers, she did not think much of him. A mere 6-star monarch was beneath her notice. Therefore, she would not secretly attack him. However, when she saw 7-star's expression, she knew that he must have attacked the other party. Moreover, The other party had successfully escaped. Qin Lan's lips curved into a cold smile when she thought of this. Damn it! We can't let him in. Seven Star's expression darkened, a trace of iciness appearing in his eyes. In the next moment, he put down his wine cup and waved his sleeve. He shouted coldly, "Who dares trespass on Valurium Manor? Today is the day of celebration for the manor. Trespassers will be killed without mercy." He roared angrily, a biting cold killing intent radiating from his body. He wanted to kill the other party before they could make a move, to prevent future trouble. Otherwise, the things he had done would be exposed. If his master found out, he would be severely punished. Therefore, Seven Star attacked without any hesitation. With a wave of his hand, a blue pagoda quickly flew out. It expanded in the sky like a star and enveloped the sword light. The Seven-Star Pagoda! The crowd cried out in surprise. They didn't expect Seven Star to be so decisive as to use his weapon right from the start. Who dares trespass on Valurium Manor? Are they not afraid of death? Who knows? Maybe it's a hothead outside who wants to join in the fun. Who cares who he is? He's dead meat. Seven Star is a great expert, and he's even used his weapon. That person can't resist at all. In the sky, Lin Xian frowned as he looked at the blue pagoda flying towards him. It seemed that Seven Star was the culprit. Seven Star had attacked him as soon as he saw him. He obviously wanted to kill him to silence him. Since the other party had already made up his mind to kill him, why should he hold back? He, Lin Xian, wasn't someone who could be trampled on. Therefore, in the next moment, Lin Xian snorted coldly. He didn't face the pagoda head-on. Instead, his figure flickered as he used Empyrean Dragon's 8 steps. He turned into a streak of light and rushed out of the Seven-Star Pagoda's range. Boom! The Seven-Star Pagoda missed its target and shattered the void. The people on the Jinling platform below were extremely surprised. What? He actually dodged it? How is that possible? Could he be a great expert? That person was so fast. Exclamations of surprise rang out. They thought that no matter who the other party was, they would be dead for sure. Chapter 2007. The other party actually dodged it so easily, which truly surprised them greatly. Seven Star was even more surprised. His pupils constricted as he pushed the Seven-Star Pagoda in the sky, wanting to attack again. Buzz! However, he still underestimated Lin Xian's speed. Lin Xian's figure flashed, and he instantly appeared on Jinling platform. His black hair fluttered, and his red robes fluttered in the wind. His gaze was like lightning, turning into a sharp blade. Lin Xian shouted coldly, "Despicable villain, plotting against me time and time again. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? What? It's actually a young man." Everyone looked at Lin Xian and exclaimed in shock. The powerhouses who came to congratulate were all puzzled. Who is this person? So domineering. He even dares to threaten Seven Star. Meanwhile, Jin Jianfeng's elders were all astonished. They recognized Lin Xian. Wasn't he taken in as the Peak Master's third disciple? Why was he constantly in conflict with Seven Star? At this moment, the first elder also stood up and said coldly, "Lin Xian, today is an important day for the monarch residence. Don't mess around." Mess around? Lin Xian sneered. Sure. Make this fellow kneel and kowtow to me in apology, and I won't mess around. What? Everyone's eyelids twitched wildly. Make second senior brother Seven Star kneel and apologize? How was that possible? That was Seven Star, the Peak Master's disciple. His status was equivalent to an elder. Moreover, Seven Star was an almighty, and could be said to have a noble status. How could he kneel to a 6-star monarch? Seven Star's face also darkened when he heard that, and thick killing intent surfaced in his eyes. First elder snorted coldly. What nonsense are you talking about? That's your senior brother. My senior brother? Are you sure he's my senior brother? Do you know what he did to me? Lin Xian sneered. Do you know that my senior brother tried to assassinate me more than once in order to protect his status? If I wasn't strong enough, I probably would have been killed by now. Assassination. Hearing this, everyone was even more shocked. Not to mention the people from the Golden Sword Peak. The experts from the outside world were even more surprised. But very quickly, their lips curled up, and they looked like they were watching a good show. This was originally Jin Jianpeik's matter. So what did it have to do with them? However, with such a show to watch today, their trip was not in vain. Nonsense! 7-Star also roared. He would never admit to something like this. Little junior brother, I don't know why you are framing me like this. But today is the day of the prince's mansion. Don't let the outsiders see you as a joke. You won't be able to bear the blame of the Wang mansion and master. So you better go back home and reflect on your mistakes. What? You dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it? Lin Xian sneered. You really are a coward. Someone like you wants to take over the Peak Lord's position? How laughable. You're courting death. 7-Star's face was extremely gloomy. No one had ever dared to mock him like this. And this brat in front of him was actually so reckless. If today wasn't the important day of the prince's mansion, he dared to guarantee that this brat would have died a few hundred times already. Enough. First Elder also roared. Brat, hurry up and go back. Don't behave atrociously here. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Impolite? How are you going to be impolite? Try being impolite. Lin Xian did not back down. He took a step forward, and the aura on his body suddenly erupted. Instantly, a terrifying blast of air surged out in all directions. Whoosh! Feeling this sharp aura, everyone exclaimed in shock. The younger disciples even revealed horrified expressions. As for the older generation experts, their brows were tightly knitted together. They did not expect that although this young man in front of them only had the cultivation of a 6-star intermediate rank king, the aura he emitted was truly too terrifying. If you don't give me an explanation today, I won't let this go, Lin Xian said coldly. He was truly too furious. If he did not kill this 7-star today, his cultivation and strength would be in vain. Stubborn. In that case, don't blame me for being impolite. First Elder's voice was icy cold, and he was about to make a move. However, at this moment, a red-robed elder stepped forward. He was the 8th elder. The 8th elder said, Big brother, there's no need for you to make a move. I'll capture this brat. He sneered. He and Lin Xian originally had some enmity. Lin Xian was accepted as the Peak Master's disciple, which made him somewhat nervous. Moreover, he could not take revenge on the hatred in his heart. After all, after becoming the Peak Master's disciple, his status was equivalent to theirs. However, it was different now. This brat actually dared to openly cause trouble on such an important day of the prince's mansion. He would definitely be severely punished. Moreover, that brat was unwilling to stop now. It was the best time to kill him. Therefore, 8th Elder decided to personally make a move and kill him. Even if the other party really died, the Peak Master and the prince's mansion would probably not blame him. Instead, they would reward him greatly. Therefore, he stepped forward without hesitation. Brat, you really don't know what's good for you. Isn't being your 3rd disciple quite carefree and happy? You actually came here to behave atrociously? Since you're courting death, then don't blame me. 8th Elder sneered, and endless flames appeared on his body. 7-Star also laughed when he saw 8th Elder make a move. He naturally knew that 8th Elder and Lin Xian had a feud. Presumably, 8th Elder would definitely not show mercy when he made a move. Moreover, 8th Elder was also a mighty figure. Dealing with a 6-star monarch was absolutely a piece of cake. This way, he could get rid of a potential enemy without having to make a move. Why not? Old thing, I gave you face last time and didn't make a move on you. I didn't expect you to be so reckless. You still dare to find trouble with me now. Since that's the case, then there's no need for you to live. Lin Xian stared at 8th Elder, his eyes filled with murderous intent. 8th Elder actually jumped out at this time and wanted to kill him. How could he let him go? You're courting death. 8th Elder roared furiously, and his red palm shot out rapidly. Flaming Divine Palm. A terrifying flame aura soared into the sky, and a terrifying heatwave swept out in all directions. 2 large red palm prints of light dyed the entire sky red. They ruthlessly slammed toward Lin Xian. At this moment, it was as if the god of fire had descended. It was incomparably powerful. Buzz! Lin Xian snorted coldly, and frost surged on his body. Instantly a blue fist shot into the sky. The terrifying frost aura was piercingly cold, and it instantly formed a layer of frost on the entire spiritual platform. Even the surrounding martial artists were covered in a layer of blue ice shards. What a terrifying frost aura. I wonder who will win. What a joke. Eighth Elder is a mighty figure. Isn't it easy to deal with a 6-star monarch boy? Eighth Elder sneered disdainfully. He already knew that Lin Xian was an ice attribute martial artist, and he immediately sneered. Brat, you want to compete with me with this frost aura of yours? Chapter 2008. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the two flaming palms became even brighter. They were like scarlet divine flames that were dancing. Boom. The two palms collided and kept rumbling. However, what was shocking was that the two of them were evenly matched. The icy flames did not shatter. Instead, they formed a powerful and effective attack to fight against the flaming palms. How is this possible? He can fight against the Eighth Elder? God, are my eyes playing tricks on me? He has the strength to fight against an almighty. Exclamations of surprise could be heard. At this moment, not to mention the people of Golden Sword Peak, even the experts from the outside world were shocked as if they had seen a ghost. Previously, they wanted to watch the show, but they did not expect the young man to be so domineering. He did not back down in the face of an almighty. In fact, the fact that they were evenly matched with each other was truly shocking. Genius, a peerless genius! Everyone exclaimed. They did not expect the arrogant young man to have such strength. The Eighth Elder's face also stiffened. A hint of shock and disbelief appeared in his eyes. He did not expect the young man to be able to fight against him. It was really unexpected. The next moment, his face became abnormally ferocious. Die kid. The Eighth Elder was furious. He could not tolerate a 6-star king being able to fight against him. Therefore, he threw out more than 10 palms in a row. The flames were monstrous and dyed the entire sky red. The airwaves rolled, and the surrounding space trembled violently. The flames on the palms turned into a big red bird in the air. It was as dazzling as a phoenix. The terrifying aura made it difficult for people to breathe. Boom! The big red bird roared and flapped its wings. It carried a monstrous air wave, and quickly charged toward Lin Xian. Eighth Elder? An almighty. Do you think you can do whatever you want? Today, I'll let you know the consequences of provoking me. Lin Xian was also furious. In front of everyone, the Eighth Elder spared no effort to use his ultimate move. It was obvious that he wanted to kill him on the spot. If that was the case, why should he hold back? Therefore, at the next moment he roared and clenched his fists. Suddenly, a terrifying destructive aura formed a black storm and swept in all directions. Boom! He threw out a punch, and the roar of a dragon resounded. An arm stretched out like a black dragon and collided with the red bird. Instantly, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Sparks flew in all directions. The destructive aura formed a black blade that cut through the void. The fiery red bird was smashed into pieces in an instant. It screamed and disappeared into the void. As for Lin Xian, his 5 fingers turned into claws, and a black dragon coiled around his 5 fingers. It turned into a huge palm that covered the sky, and it quickly slammed towards the Eighth Elder. What? He's so strong. Everyone was stunned. They quickly retreated and rose into the air. Their faces were filled with fear. Yi Xuan was too strong. He was able to shatter the Eighth Elder's ultimate move with just one punch. It was unbelievable. Not only that, he even took the initiative to kill the Eighth Elder, which was hard to believe. The Eighth Elder's pupil shrank. His opponent's fists were too violent. However, he was incomparably furious because the other party actually dared to attack him. He really didn't know what death was. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and spat out balls of fire, which turned into fiery meteors that soared into the sky. He wanted to shatter the huge black palm. The huge black palm carried with it a violent aura. 5 dragons coiled around it. It was extremely ferocious and terrifying, as if it could tear everything apart. Therefore, the fiery meteor-like fireballs were unable to withstand it, and were completely shattered. Not only that, But the eighth elder was also instantly enveloped by the huge black palm. In the next moment he was trapped in darkness. The 5 dragons roared ferociously and turned into rays of sharp sword radiance. They moved quickly and slashed towards the eighth elder. Buzz! The eighth elder roared. He waved his hand, and a fiery red light screen appeared. The runes on it shone and formed a solid defense. Clang! Clang! The sword chi blasted on the red light screen, and a deafening sound was heard. In the outside world, everyone could only see a huge palm that covered the sky and wrapped around the eighth elder. They could no longer see what was happening inside. Only terrifying voices could be heard echoing in the air. Ah! At this moment, an extremely miserable voice rang out from the huge palm that blotted out the sky. When everyone heard the sound, their scalps went numb. However, the faces of the people from Golden Sword Peak changed. This was because they realized that the sound came from the eighth elder. The eighth elder is injured? How is this possible? These people widened their eyes in disbelief. That's an almighty. How could he lose to a mere 6-star king? Boom! In the next moment, the huge palm that covered the sky loosened. Then, a ray of red light escaped into the distance. It was the eighth elder. At this moment, his hair was disheveled, and he was in an extremely sorry state. There were several sword wounds on his body that had split his body open, revealing deep white bones. There was even one that almost split him in half. He's really injured. Seeing this scene, everyone was extremely shocked. They were only guessing at first, but now that they saw this scene, they knew that the eighth elder was really injured. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian with fear in their eyes. What kind of existence was this young man who could defeat an almighty? They did not dare to imagine. 7-star was also stunned. To be honest, he did not expect this to happen either. That was the eighth elder. He was an almighty who was not inferior to him. But now he was being chased like a stray dog. A cold murderous intent appeared in his eyes. He swore that he would kill the other party today. Because if the other party continued to grow, it would not be long before he would not be able to suppress the other party. Stop! 7-star roared, and waved the 7-star pagoda to block Lin Xian's path. At the same time he said coldly, "What are you doing? Do you know how big of a sin it is to injure the eighth elder? Moreover, this is the Lioli royal residence. How dare you fight here? Do you want to die?" Humph! Lin Xian ignored 7-star. He snorted and used the chaotic doppelganger to perform the 6 gods sword technique. Suddenly 3 doppelgangers appeared. Each of them had monstrous sword chi. Like the god of death, they instantly caught up with the eighth elder. A terrifying sword essence erupted and shot into the sky, turning the sky into nothingness. The eighth elder was also pierced by the sword chi. His eyes were wide open as he fell from the sky. What? The eighth elder has been killed. Everyone on the spiritual platform went crazy when they saw this scene. They could not believe it at all. Injuring the eighth elder and killing him were 2 different things. Almighties usually had life-saving means. Unless they fought desperately, it was rare to be able to kill an almighty. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.